Hello, everybody. We're now live for the show tonight. I am going to have my good friend on, Bruce Smith. And you know what? I may have sent Bruce the wrong time because I was trying to tell him he could come a little early just so we could check the levels and all that. And I probably screwed it up by an hour, knowing me. Uh, but I sent Bruce another contact, so hopefully he'll pop on here any minute. But at any rate, I can get a few things out of the way regarding this. It's just about Bruce's new book, and I'm excited about it because I'm a big fan of Bruce's writing. So let me share. What I want to do is share the screen because I didn't do any having some software issues. So I'm going to share the screen to Amazon, where you can find this great book, which I just got the Kindle version, just digging into it. I already knew a little bit about it because Bruce was telling me about it, and he sent a few advanced ones out for some reviews, which I'm going to read a couple of those reviews here shortly. But the book is called Becoming God Realized, Stories from My Journey by Bruce A. Smith. Of course, Bruce is most famously known from the D.B. Cooper world. We call him the Mayor of Cooperville. He's been covering the D.B. Cooper case for, I'm going to throw out 26 years. I might be off by that. Maybe he can correct me, but that all started when he met the Foreman family. Of course, Ron and Pat Foreman, an older couple, was friends with a good friend of theirs named Barb Dayton. And Barb was born a man. And Barb, I think we got to get this right because I know Darren brings it up a lot. You know, and Darren Schaefer, the host of the Cooper Vortex, where he says, you know, it'd be great if Barb was D.B. Cooper because it's just such a Pacific Northwest story. Because I think Barb was the first gender transition surgery in, I believe, Washington State. It was either Oregon or Washington, but I think it was Washington State. But the Foremans are how Bruce becomes a D.B. Cooper researcher when he meets them at doing a local story. He's doing as a local writer. Bruce, originally from New York, we'll get into that. Moves out to the Pacific Northwest, following his journey that he's going to talk a lot about in this book. But that's kind of how Bruce gets introduced to the D.B. Cooper, was through Ron and Pat Foreman and their belief that Barb Dayton could have been D. Cooper, and they still believe that. And I love the Foremans; they're great. I got to meet them in person. I got to meet Bruce in person as well at CooperCon this past November, and I met Ron and Pat. Such a great couple, and their daughter, of course, who's great. She's kind of carrying on the mantle for them with their belief that Barb was D.B. Cooper. But it's great. I got to share the stage with them with John Limbach, and it was a really good time. But let me just read this little blurb right quick for the Bruce's book. Let me make sure real quick he's not there. Not yet, but I'll be checking my email, which probably not showing you guys. Bruce is pretty good about emailing me. I should have his number because we hung out a little bit in Seattle. First of all, let me do a mic check. Can everybody hear me okay, or is it too loud? These last two podcasts I did, I'm like so loud. Could be my mic level. I might need to back it off a bit because the last two podcasts I did, and I want to shout out to that as well. Our latest podcast on DB Cooper Interactive. That's on the internet. That's run by a good friend of mine, D. Raj. That's his brainchild. Everything on there is bracing. Oh, thanks, Richard. Everything. Hey, Plate C. Hey, Brant. Hey, Lee. Patty, of course, holding it down, Brant. That is all done by a guy named D. Raj, who found me picking up on Ted Braden, and he doing a podcast about Braden. And it's not, you know, like he likes to say at the beginning of each one, we're not trying to convince you Braden's Cooper. If you don't like Braden's Cooper, fine. I don't care. It doesn't matter if I can convince one more person if he is or not. Of course, I like him. I'm fascinated with the guy, Cooper or not. It's what the book's about, my book. But if you can catch that podcast, if you just go to YouTube and type in DB Cooper Interactive, you probably don't even have to put in podcast, but just DB Cooper Interactive. And that whole channel is run by D. Raj. Of course, that's not his full name, but it's kind of a play on his real name. But it's a really good podcast. The last one we did was with Bud Gibson. And Bud's been a good buddy of mine for about 4 years, maybe 5. When I was writing a Paratrooper Fortune, Bud was a big help in MACV-SOG research. Of course, Ted Braden was a team leader in MACV-SOG. So Bud is one of the top civilian researchers of MACV-SOG, maybe the top. I think of guys like him and Jason Hardy, who wrote MACV-SOG, A History of a Clandestine Army, these big colorful books I talk about that have all these beautiful photographs, because Jason would call the families of these former soldiers or the soldiers themselves in many cases, because some of them are still alive, fortunately, from Vietnam. Unlike World War II, it's getting really hard to find a World War II vet now, being so long, but they're still living guys that served in MACV-SOG. And it was great to have Bud helping me with that. But Bud is on our last episode. I think it's episode number 2 of DB Cooper Interactive. Definitely check that out. I've been getting so many compliments on that, and I'm like, I wish I could take the credit, but I didn't do it. I mean, I speak on it, but it's not my brainchild. It's the brainchild of D-Raj. He isn't me, but I so was welcome to. Yeah. I never asked for money, Jeff, ever. I've never asked for money, and this channel's not monetized. I've never had even a Patreon. I never asked for money. It's just one of my things. Asking for money is just, it's not a bad thing, even though I put food on the table in the real estate business. Thank God, I'm fortunate, to work for a family-owned company that we do well. And the other beautiful thing about that is people can't get me fired from my job, because, as you know, people know me. I can be a little spirited at times, and that sometimes can bleed over into my work. So it's kind of fun, because there are a lot of angry people out there, and they want to get you fired. Well, it's hard to get me fired because I work for a family company. So I try not to take advantage of that, because I really try to treat everyone fairly, whether it's be doing this stuff or doing regular work or whatever I do. I don't try to start fights or anything like that, but there are some really nasty people out there. And like I said, they're good actors. There's people that can act like your best friend, and then 8 months later, you find out they're trying to torpedo you for no reason. I mean, just because they wanted to. I don't understand these type of things, but they unfortunately happen. Let me see. Who knows? Maybe Bruce ran into Blevins. Please see, I can't get fired either, as you were retired. I like that. Well, let me get back to Bruce. Even if Bruce doesn't show up, which I think he will. I think I screwed him up. I have a feeling Bruce will be here in about 20 minutes. Hopefully sooner. Anyway, he's got one rating on the book. The book came out February 16th, 2025. So a little bit over a month. It takes a while to start gaining reviews on books, especially longer ones, no matter how many people you're getting it out to and how many shows you do. Most people who read books on Amazon do not leave reviews. They just don't. And it's part of me with my editor. We just aren't people that really like to beg for reviews. If you liked it, please let us know. If you didn't like it, let us know. But once in a while, I will ask for one. If somebody emails me for a signed copy or something like that, I just say, hey, in return, can you leave a review on Amazon? Because it helps the book. Fortunately for me, 2 of the main books have well over 100. You can't really move the needle, good or bad. But when the book's in its infancy like this one, you want to get a good 10, 15, 4 or 5 star reviews, just to help the book out, because you don't want to start out with bad ones, or you have 3 reviews and one of them's bad and they're trashing it for whatever reason, because there's so much. I mean, people would give bad reviews to Shakespeare because they just don't know any better. And some people are just angry at life. And this is a way for them to feel better about themselves, because they never bothered to spend the time or the effort into writing a book. So they want to criticize other people's material. Unfortunately, that's true. But also, unfortunately, there's some bad stuff out there that probably does deserve bad ratings. I wouldn't think this book would be one of them, because Bruce Smith is one of my 2 favorite current writers, what I'd say modern writers. Of course, I like Poe Valentine, which might come on the show because he knows a good mutual friend of mine, Ronnie Gonzalez. And then I have the luxury of being friends with my other favorite writer, Bruce A. Smith, and not just DB Cooper things, which of course Bruce wrote DB Cooper in the FBI. But I like all things that Bruce has written, especially his blog called The Mountain News. And there is a link to buy this book in the the notes of this particular YouTube show, but it says, Becoming God Realized Stories from My Journey. Becoming God Realized Stories from My Journey is a collection of 50 stories that detail the arc of my development as a spiritual being from childhood, where I first learned I could love another, to the present day, where I am finding the courage to live as a heart-centered being seeking union with the source. I love to stuff. You know what? Bruce sounds a lot like my friend Solaris Blue Raven. I got to get those two together. Bruce, Bruce, whenever I hope you go back and listen to this. Remind me to get you together with my friend Solaris Blue Raven. Half of these stories, I need to have a Solaris on as well. Half of these stories are born from my 20 years in the Rampto School of Enlightenment, revealing many paranormal events, including UFO abductions, along with several manifestations of health and well-being. The remainder delve into my work and social life, particularly those that help me grow and mature into a caring and competent man, such as my 14-year relationship with a woman named Barbara. I'm going to ask him about Barbara because I'm good friends with Bruce, and I don't know much about Barbara. I'm not going to lie to you. In addition, I share some journalistic experiences that have brought forth a worldly wisdom, such as governmental and media cover-ups. I really want to talk to him about that specifically. So since my brain is always tired, somebody please remind me of that, where Bruce mentions here in his write-up of his new book, governmental and media cover-ups, particularly as it pertains to D.B. Cooper. In particular, the drowning of TWA Flight 800 and the medical waste wash-ups of 1988 in New York City. Bruce is from New York. I remember one of his early jobs was cleaning up the beaches and making them environmentally safe was one of Bruce's earlier jobs. My first book, D.B. Cooper and the FBI, A Case Study of America's Only Unsolved Skyjacking, 3rd edition, is available in Kindle format. You can't beat it. Best book ever. Best Cooper book ever. I think my first D.B. Cooper, my favorite D.B. Cooper book is, of course, D.B. Cooper and the FBI. Second favorite's going to be Jeff Gray's book, Skyjacked. I love it. Hey, Nicole, definitely shout out to Nicole Legg. If you haven't heard I think it's the last one on the D.B. Cooper Vortex. I think Nicole can correct me, but I think there was 3 D.B. Cooper Vortex. Of course, that's my friend Darren Schaefer's All D.B. Cooper podcast. And I'll pull this for now. We can have a fun show even before Bruce shows up because Nicole reminded me of something. But anyway, they've been doing book reviews together, Nicole with Darren, and they're great. They're all great. Of course, my favorite is the one of my book, Paratrooper of Fortune, that Nicole did with Darren. It's a great review. I really appreciate both of them a lot. Both good friends. I just can't say enough. I'll take the 4-star or the 4 parachute rating. I think if you and Darren, one thing Darren did say on this, and I don't know, I know Darren likes to, or Russell Colbert, his audio engineer for Cooper Vortex, likes to get the audio cleaned up, stuff I don't do much of. But one thing that Darren has said a lot of lately is that Drew got so far with Ted Braden, he can't go any further. Well, that's changed, folks. We got more on Ted Braden now than we've had in at least 2 years. Thank you to D-Raj. There's stories out there now about Braden that are true, and we have hard documents. So Braden has gone further than ever in the past 2 weeks than he has in 2 years. So, Darren, if you're listening, don't make that comment again because it's wrong. And we found out a lot of new stuff about Ted Braden that will blow your mind. And this isn't a brag, it's truth. We've got documents. We've got lots of eye-popping stuff. We got Braden living not far from Niles, Ohio in the early 70s. Why is that important? Because the titanium on D.B. Cooper's tie was made from the Hunter process, from which one of the only places in America making titanium from the Hunter process was RMI Metals of Niles, Ohio. Well, guess who was living in the early 70s before Norjack, where that titanium was being made? One Ted B. Braden. And we can prove it now. I couldn't prove it back in the day. Now we can prove it. Nicole says she would have given it 5. I got to put that up, Nicole. We're going to blame it on Darren. Darren, we're not friends anymore. Nicole and I are. But yeah, but I would. I'm kidding, really. If 5 parachutes is a high bar, even I don't know. Did you guys give five parachutes to anybody? I think DB Cooper and the FBI deserves 5 stars. I really do. If y'all reviewed that or not, I'm not sure. Of course, written by my hopefully upcoming guest Bruce Smith. That book is considered the Bible. It's well written. It's interesting. It covers all the suspects. I think one knock that Darren had was that I said in the book, and honest to God, I'm saying it to Nicole because she's here, that I said something about Richard Floyd McCoy's kids not believing he was DB Cooper. Honest to God, I don't remember writing that. I don't remember writing that. But when the book was written, and it was written just after I wrote the book, the Zodiac Killer book, I don't know if this was just a flavor of the day or what people did, or it was my dumb idea, but you kind of took shots at other suspects just because, I guess, to make yours look better, which is really cheesy now, And if I regretted anything, I regret that, because if you have a good suspect, just talk about your suspect. You don't have to go after the competition or guys that aren't so good. But maybe it was filler. I think I kind of saw it as making Braden look better and others as filler. Same with Zodiac, and I kind of regret that. I probably would have done it if I could change something. I would probably change that. I would probably just stick to the person of interest in the book and not gotten into Kenny and not gotten into McCoy. Because honest to God, I don't remember writing that, even though back in the day, and this will help, Nicole, you'll find this interesting, is that I knew a lot about Richard Floyd McCoy. Actually, out of all the DB Cooper suspects, the one I know most about outside of Ted Braden is Richard Floyd McCoy. I know a lot about McCoy just because he interests me. I don't think he was Cooper, but he just interests me. And back then, most people did not even know conclusively that Richard McCoy was a Green Beret. He was in his first tour in Vietnam on Captain Black's team in 1964 in Vietnam. I'm the only person that ever interviewed someone else on that team that knew McCoy, camped with McCoy, fought with McCoy. I'm the only person that's done that. So I do know that Richard Floyd McCoy, did not smoke cigarettes in Vietnam, even out in the bush, even out in the woods, did not smoke. And that's interesting because a lot of guys did. And if you were a closet smoker, and we know DB Cooper was a smoker, you would probably smoke out in Vietnam where you could die. You'd get in a firefight. In that first tour for McCoy, he did get a CIB, which is a combat infantry badge. And then we know that after his first tour in 64, McCoy comes back to North Carolina, where he's from. He's from outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. I know some people like McCoy like to get into Raleigh cigarettes. I actually I'm getting enough material to do so now, Nicole. With a lot of what D-Rod just found, and D-Rod just kind of inspired me to go back and look at some of my older correspondences with people like Hank Birch is one. And well, I'll just start with Hank Birch. Hank Birch was, of course, the guy that oversaw Ted Braden in confinement at Fort Dix in 1967 after he was apprehended from the Congo. And I know Nicole believes that was all a ruse by the CIA just to get Braden out of there. And that's probably true. It doesn't change anything Cooperish with Braden. And its fact is, as far as this would be great with Bruce, is anything that, because Bruce is very conspiratorial conspiratorial, if that's a correct saying. Bruce is into conspiracies a lot. I see a lot of conspiracy in DB Cooper where I don't see it other places like Zodiac. There's a lot of people that think Zodiac could be MK Ultra. I've never seen good evidence of that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just have never seen it. Hey Ross, hey Lee, never seen it. You know what? Braden cigarettes. This is good. I love questions like this. Good Lord, this is already turning out to be fun for me. What were Braden cigarettes? Raleigh? Wow, old school. Chesterfields and Camels. I remember. Yeah, I do too. My grandfather smoked Lucky Strikes, and my uncle smoked Pall Malls way back in the day. My dad smoked a little bit when he was in the Marines, but quit after he got out of the Marines. But Ted Braden's cigarette of choice, at least as per Altair, who was his best friend in the early 60s, was Benson and Hedges. So from what I was told, Benson and Hedges isn't a far cry from Raleigh filter tips, but I'm not a smoker. And if anybody's an older time smoker, or dad was an old time smoker, or grandfather, if you know anything, compare a Benson and Hedges to a Raleigh filter tip. And that would be interesting to do, because I do know that Braden smoked Benson and Hedges in the early 60s. Don't know that he ever smoked rallies. You know, if I said that, I'd be curious if anybody's saying their suspect smoke rallies. It's almost too convenient, you know. That's why some people like Richard Floyd McCoy, because he was from the Raleigh, North Carolina area. But unfortunately for him, he had a Raleigh, North Carolina accent. Actually, he had a more rural North Carolina accent. It was pretty thick. So going back to McCoy, he does a tour in Vietnam in '64 on what they call an A team, a demo team, Captain Black's team. I think that was the first group. The largest group of special forces in Vietnam is fifth group, I believe. And Bud would have to clear me up on that. I hope you stop by. I don't know. Do they still make? Does anyone know if it does? I agree with Quentin. It seems like a women's cigarette. I always thought that what are they called? What are those cigarettes called? Menthol. I always thought menthol seemed kind of feminine to me, and they seem really bad on your lungs because I always heard they crystallize your lungs. But I do agree, they sound like a women's cigarette. I agree with you, Quentin. Quentin, all the way from Ireland, I believe. Read Tom O'Neill's book, and you will see the connection to Zodiac and MK Ultra. Yeah, I know a lot about Tom O'Neill's book. I haven't read it. Ross, have you? Let me know. I definitely believe in MK Ultra. You know that, Plate C. We've been trading ideas for a long time, you and I, but I haven't seen any direct evidence. But I'm not ruling it out. I'm putting it that way. But I'm just saying, with things, DB Cooper, there's a lot of conspiracy. I don't know why, but it's there. Menthol has a great taste after a salty steak. Maybe he wore high karate cologne too. Did that actually exist? I don't know. But going back to McCoy, because I do know a lot about Richard Floyd McCoy, which is weird. I guess Nicole being on made me think of all this, that Darren kind of had a knock on me on saying McCoy's kids didn't believe he's Cooper. Well, of course, they're out now saying they believe he's Cooper. He had two young children at the time, Richard and Shanti. I think it's Shanti, not Tay, but I believe it's Shanti McCoy. She's a female. She's a writer as well. And Richard Jr. was a little younger. I think Richard McCoy was a junior, and I think Rick, as he goes by, is the third. And he's done a few podcasts. I haven't had him on, but of course now they're saying they believe it. Their father was DB Cooper. And so I think that's the only thing that Darren said in the review with Nicole that didn't age well. I just thought that was funny because, honest to God, I don't remember writing it. And it really doesn't have any bearing on anything, because most people believe that Dan Greider kind of coerced them into believing it, because Dan Greider was so adamant about proving that Richard Floyd McCoy was DB Cooper that he kind of like really leaned hard on Rick and possibly some others. I don't know about Shantae, but others know more about it than I do. I'm just interested in McCoy in general. His story is just fascinating to me. Not as much as Braden's, but I'd say he's almost a close second, because here he is in a helicopter looking for himself after his hijacking in '72. And he's part of the Utah National Guard. He's trying to find himself in a helicopter. Who can beat that? McCoy, he leaves the hijack instructions for his hijacking of it was United Airlines, right, for McCoy, and he leaves him in the waiting room. What hijacker is going to leave it literally, from what I know, said hijack instructions on the envelope. And I'm just trying to bash McCoy. I'm just trying to bash McCoy, but when McCoy got to the ground with the money, of course, McCoy famously asked for $500,000. Cooper asked for 200, but McCoy gets to the ground and he buries the money, and he hitchhikes a ride from a local named Pete Zimmerman, who was just 16 years old, hadn't been driving that long. He has Pete Zimmerman take him by a restaurant. I believe it's called the High Top, and he got a milkshake, maybe a hamburger, spent a few of the dollars. I don't know if that was, I honestly don't know if that was part of the ransom money or McCoy had a few bucks on him, but they spent like I think $5 at the High Top. And then in this Provo, Utah area. And then he has Pete Zimmerman take him home to his exact house. And that's a fact, because I had to really dig into the newspapers because I love this story so much. I wanted to make sure, because there was one account where it read like Pete dropped McCoy off and at the outside of his neighborhood. So that would at least make McCoy not look like a total idiot. But I dug in further and found there was a report from McCoy's neighbor that he remembers that time at night. of the hijacking, and not Cooper's, of course, this is McCoy's hijacking in 72, that Pete Zimmerman dropped McCoy off to his house, pulled it either in front of his house or in his driveway, one or the other, because one of the neighbors gave a statement towards it. Like, yeah, he came home around whatever time that was in the evening after they went to the high top. So if anybody thinks DB Cooper is that dumb, you know, go for it. And I think McCoy has this bigger presence on the internet because literally this is Dan Greider in his army or him in his extra free time, because I've had comments on channels, like I've done a couple of anti-McCoy videos. Of course, nobody does more than Ryan. And I helped, you know, I heavily helped Ryan as much as I could with any of that because he did such a great job. Shout out to Ryan Burns for that. And I would get comments like, how could you be so dumb and not see that this is Richard Floyd McCoy, is DB Cooper? And I'll answer back succinctly. I'll be like, not one witness to DB Cooper thought it was him after being showed pictures just months after the DB Cooper hijacking in November 71. The Stews were shown pictures of McCoy. Not one of them said it looked even remotely like him. McCoy had a thick Southern North Carolina accent. He had a distinct lisp. You know, he had a lisp in his voice because the skin under his tongue was removed because it was too taut when he was born. And that could have been because he was the product of first cousins marrying. That's true. I'm not trying to insult him. It's just a fact. His parents were blood first cousins. That's a fact. That could have been why he had that birth defect. So to loosen up that area where his tongue was, they had to literally, back in the old days, maybe there's a way to stretch it now, I don't know, but they literally surgically removed the flap of skin under his tongue. So that resulted in a lisp. Another thing people have no idea about Richard Floyd McCoy, and this is how well I know him, and Dan Greider doesn't even know this. So here's the guy pushing him as a suspect. I know he's suspect better than he does. God forbid if anybody knows more about Braden than I do. I mean, D-Rod is catching up though, but I know more about McCoy than McCoy supporters. Okay, that's why it's funny. Richard Floyd McCoy was very, very hard of hearing, even when he was that young. He could not hear that well. He had gotten an infection in Vietnam in one of his ears, and it affected that hearing in one ear for life. He didn't hear well in the other ear because of from already being in combat, from already flying helicopters, which he did during his second tour in Vietnam. He wanted to do a third, so he does his first. He is Special Forces first group. Spends a little time with fifth group in Fort Bragg, because I always had this weird belief that maybe McCoy and Braden crossed paths at Bragg. If they did, it was in a small window, so I don't think they did. But he starts working for a company called Electrolux Vacuum Cleaners. I'm sure Dan Greider knows that. Not. So after his first tour in Vietnam, he's trying to make some money for his family at Electrolux. These old school looking crazy vacuum cleaners. I think you can still see him on eBay or find vintage ones called Electrolux vacuums. So I don't know if he's making them or he's selling them. I'm not sure which. But then he wants to go back to Vietnam for a third tour. He's back in Utah. He's going to BYU. Of course, he's Mormon. And his wife, he tells his wife, I want to go back to Vietnam. And, you know, after his second tour as a helicopter pilot, where he gets a Distinguished Flying Cross, very brave guy. And she says, hell no. You know, if you go back to Vietnam, we're done. So he gave up on that, but he desperately wanted to go back to Vietnam for a third tour. McCoy was a lisper, not a doctor. That's funny. That's like somebody else would make jokes that funny, but that is a good one. I love any connection to Star Trek. Let me see if I've heard from I don't know. Bruce fell off the face of the earth. It could be a CIA thing. Nicole, I think he was selling them. He was working multiple jobs. Oh, wow. I mean, Nicole knows her stuff. Nicole is smart. I think he was selling them. He was working multiple jobs and going to school at night. That is true. He was a Mormon Sunday school teacher. Nicole, I bet you didn't know he was hard of hearing. Unless I said it before, but that's a rarely known fact about McCoy. So if he is DB Cooper, I guarantee you, Tina or somebody will remember. He would say something like, "Can you repeat yourself?" Huh? Can't hear that. Like me, I'm pretty deaf. But he was very hard of hearing even at that age. Of course, McCoy was 28. Thank you for texting him, Pat. Really appreciate that. And now that reminds me, when Bruce comes on, I need to tell him about. Well, Pat's already here, so you can tell him a big hello from Pat to Bruce. And I enjoyed getting to have dinner with Pat, her son, and Bruce. And who was the lady we were with? The lady was she from Germany that we had dinner with across the street from the hotel? I don't know. I forgot her name. Remind me of her name. How much do you think Karen was involved? Of course, she's talking about Karen Burns McCoy, Burnsy, Ryan Burns. No, I always give him trouble about that. Hey, here's another funny fact: is that Richard McCoy went to Broughton High School. So obviously that's Nikki's last name. But so then you have Karen Burns McCoy. So it's just Cooperisms. McCoy went to Broughton High School in whatever part of near Raleigh, North Carolina he's from. You know what? I can almost remember the name of the town he's from. It'll come to me, even though I'm slow. But let's see. I think Bruce will show up in a minute. She's a German dentist, really? What was her name? Really nice lady. Is she a big Cooperite? Of course, okay, let me read this before I forget. And wanted to mention, what did I want to mention? Something else that's important. Hopefully this will come back up. I wanted to mention, Tim is around. Landy Rourke said hi. I want to give a shout out to Landy. Landy couldn't make the show tonight, but she's going to watch it tomorrow. Landy was the first person I met when I went to CooperCon, because it was wherever I was trying to get to the hotel, I ran into Landy. And funnily enough, she recognized me, but couldn't remember my name. And I think she was tired from flying. She came in and she lives in Arizona. I know she's from, I think she's from Midland. I know she's a Texan originally and moved to Arizona. But funnily enough, for you Cooperites out there, I think Landy originally thought I was Chris Cunningham. That was funny. Was it Cove City? I thought there was another place, but Cove City is definitely one of them. It's a German dentist. I think she's still around. Yeah, McCoy Electrolux goes back, gets the Distinguished Flying Cross, makes it back. He's at BYU. He is teaching Mormon Sunday school. His professor is interviewed, and he was into criminology. He was into studying hijackings. He wanted to be some form of a detective or police officer. Of course, Nicole knows, because Nicole just read the Real McCoy book, which are hard to find now. Why are they hard to find? Nicole knows, because there was a lawsuit. Just go back to your question, that they implied Richard Floyd McCoy's wife, Karen, in the crime. And she said she sued him for that, for trying to imply that she was involved in his hijacking, not Cooper's. But she was involved in his hijacking, so I don't know what happened. But they claimed that the judge was very anti-Mormon and wanted to make an example out of him. And I agree when they talk about on Darren and Nicole's podcast about the book, because they review my book and then they go into the Real McCoy, which was great, because the two people I want to hear the most about are on the same podcast. That's lucky. And so they knew a lot about it, and they just reread Rhodes and Calamay's book, The Real McCoy. But they're hard to find, because Richard Floyd McCoy's wife sued Rhodes and Calamay for implicating her in the hijacking. And one of the results of that lawsuit was to pull all the books off the shelf. That's why they're hard to find now, and they go for more money, because they're rare. Real McCoy's on archive. Yeah, I should read it, even though I like Nicole pointed out in the review, there's a lot of untruths in the book. There was, of course, they found McCoy's a receipt from a gas station near Las Vegas. Maybe he was in Vegas. Maybe he was a gambler, which would be interesting, that he's breaking, a Mormon law there by gambling, because I'm sure that was frowned upon. But from what I know, and talking with somebody that served with him in Vietnam a lot, who was with this unit in Black's Unit 64, never saw him drink, never saw him smoke once. But to be fair to McCoy, I also asked him, do you remember him having a distinct accent, Southern, which there was a lot of Southern boys in Vietnam, let's face it. But do you remember him having any form of a lisp or anything like that? And he did not. He was just adamant that he never saw him smoke or drink. He was a really strict Mormon, even in country, as we say, in Vietnam. Did a little graysmithing. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. According to Nicole, Rhodes and Calamay did a little graysmithing in their book. Of course, I'm somehow credited with that term, graysmithing. which I love. I don't know who gave that to me. Maybe Ned DeHaan. Can read it for free on archive. Let me. But I think she was involved. I mean, obviously, going back to that, it was Karen involved in McCoy's hijacking. From what I recall, she's the one that had written up the hijack instructions that he famously left the waiting area. And of course, it had to be brought on to McCoy on the plane. I think his alias was James Johnson. Nicole will know from reading the book recently. And I guess the purser, not Kenny, came onto the plane and said, did anybody leave these behind? And McCoy was putting on his makeup and all his garb or whatever in the lavatory. And he comes out of the lavatory and this guy's waving this manila envelope in the air saying, anybody leave this? And of course it was McCoy's hijacking instructions. Like, what do you need to write down? I mean, what is it? Okay, now I'm back. It could be the FBI, seriously. After I think I even said something to you, Pat. After D Rod's been doing his thing and doing the serious kicking the ant beds on Braden, I've been having a lot of weird stuff happen to all my my texting. Like I'm trying to our messenger texting, which I do a lot of with Pat, Tim, whoever, a lot of vortexers, some Zodiac people like Neil Arnold, and it just stops working. It just doesn't work at all. It's like I'm trying to clearly type out one word and it just disappears, or it scrambles, or it goes, or it shuts down, or all this weird stuff has been happening lately. I have a brand new iPhone. I think it's a 16, and worked like a charm for 2 weeks, and now all of a sudden it's going bonker, haywire. Same with my emails. Problems with my emails, work, home are acting weird, and I'm not making this up. D-Rod's having the same problem, and maybe a little FBI out there. I remember Bruce going back to Bruce, which is about Bruce. He had a lot of files that were just disappeared. They were Cooper related stuff. Back in the day, I was going to ask him about that because it made me think about that because it's been happening to me lately. Maybe it's just user error, as they say, but I've been having a lot of technical problems, big time. Yes, the chemicals in the tie are telling, and I'll say this: I'd never chase the tie as a suspect person. I mean, I'm a Cooper guy. I like the unknown DB Cooper too. So yeah, I have a suspect, but I never chased the tie with Braden, and it's not because I didn't have anything. It's just because I was a believer that the tie could have easily come from somewhere else. It could have been some form of goodwill. I don't even know if goodwill existed in 71 or 2 or whatever, or that he found it at the airport, or maybe the tie was at Boeing. I was never a big tie chaser, but what we know now is Braden's a hell of a lot better player for that tie than we thought initially. If he's living near Niles, Ohio, pre-Norjack, be afraid. Be very afraid. That's all I got to say. And as Nicole famously pointed out on her podcast on the Cooper Vortex, that's on Podbean. And he also uploads those to YouTube, as most of you probably know if you're Cooper people. You should be able to find that book review series with Nicole and Darren on YouTube as well. I haven't gotten the reminder that the last one, or the one that she does Paratrooper Fortune and Real McCoy on with Darren. Hey, Wesley, I don't know if that's shown up on YouTube yet, but if it does, I'll put that in the community section as well. I hope that turns up. But if not, you can find it online. Just go to Cooper Vortex, go to the last one. I think in the notes, it should say which books they're reviewing. And Nicole might have already helped me there or not, but I think they did 3 shows so far. I'm not sure how many books you guys did. Maybe you guys did 4 episodes, which I know you did 2 on the last one. So I don't know if y'all did 6 books or 7, or I'm not sure, but they're all great. 5. Nicole says 5. So, have you done DB Cooper and the FBI yet? If you did it and I don't know about it, shame on me. But just curious if any book, I'm not pushing, but if any book deserves 5 parachutes, it's going to be DB Cooper and the FBI. Just because it's a landmark book. You really can't be a student of this case without reading it, in my opinion. It's just a place I'd tell everybody to start. The book reviews are probably my favorite episodes. Nicole was a great guest. Nicole is wicked smart. Nicole's the one, I think Nicole was the first one that said that uranium, which we now know is found on the tie, and the tie seems to change a lot, which that's one thing that scares me about DB Cooper's tie, is the chemicals that are on it change a lot, either from Tom K or Macron or whatever the hell's going on. Oh, 5 episodes. Okay, Nicole says 10 books, 5 episodes. I like your new picture, by the way. I know it's a new profile. Don't go Clyde Lewis paranoid on us. No, I won't go too Clyde Lewis paranoid. Of course, what suspect was Clyde Lewis personal friends with? I'll let the gallery answer. Nicole, I know you know, smart. But Nicole, I think, is the first person that said uranium can be found where? In the Congo. What DB Cooper suspect spent time in the Congo, for crying out loud? 10 books, 5 episodes. They're all I definitely listen to every one of mine and the McCoy, because those are my favorite suspects. But I promise I will get caught up on all of them. But Darren needs to figure out that whole McCoy deal, because if McCoy's kids were really little at the time of the hijacking, so at the time that book was written, I don't know why I would have claimed his kids didn't think he was Cooper or not, because they were too young. It really would have been immaterial. It's immaterial now. They were just too young. They don't know anything. They really don't. They don't know the case well. Greider doesn't even know the case well. So it's immaterial if Richard Floyd McCoy's kids think he's Cooper or not, in my opinion. They're just too young. They don't remember it at all. Is it true Cheney froze to death? Yes, that's mostly true. Cheney fell off his patio in Benton City, Washington in 2009. He did have cancer. I'm not sure what cancer. Somebody told me, and I don't know how they know, because in the write-up it doesn't say, but he did have cancer at the time. But he did freeze to death because he fell off his porch, from maybe being just sick from the cancer, and it was cold that night. Benton City, Washington gets pretty cold, and no one came to his aid for I don't know, till daylight. And I think he fell maybe later evening, and he was out there for hours. I don't know how many hours, but he did. He literally did. Freezing to death was at least half of his death, if not more. Yes. So the answer to your question, Wesley, is yes. That would be interesting. You think it's lung cancer? I never heard that definitively. If there's a source for that, let me know, or you can email it me if you want to keep it that way. It's just Drew Beeson at Yahoo. If you have any source for that, I'd like to know. I've never been able to ascertain if Don Cheney was a smoker or not. He did fall. That's proven that he did fall. Cole says hi to Pat. Pat says hi back to Nicole. And, we were going through that whole thing about the women's point of view in the DB Cooper vortex. And I've always stated that I think it's great. I love all these new people. And I mentioned Landy, who's great. She was so nice. I met Nicole in person. So nice. Her husband was there as well. Great guy. Pat was great. She was there with their son and her husband. Great guys. Just great families. Good people. But I love the female perspective on Cooper. I like it. I like the English perspective on Zodiac. And it's not just because a lot of the English people kind of like my theory. That's part of it. I'm not going to lie. And I'm English descent, but I like the women's views on Cooper better than the men's. Okay, I said it on my own show. I like the women's views on Cooper better than the men's. No one kill me for that. It's true. Pat says the women will solve the case. I love the women's points of views on everything. Who's the lady in Australia? I'm kind of brain dead. It's late Sunday. Who's the lady in Australia? She does great work too. Of course, Nicole's smart as a whip. Pat, all of them. all the lady. It's like in the beginning there was no women in the Cooper case really, other than maybe Pat Foreman, and then we started gaining them with Pat and Nicole and different ones. I mean, Lisa's there too because she has she's Walter Recca's niece. Mary Johns, thank you. Mary Johns is smart as a straight edge razor. She's really good. We've got a great researcher. How could anybody not like the contributions from the women in the Vortex? They're incredible, all of them. I can't think of a. Well, there is one sort of lady in the Vortex. I don't care for. I won't say whose name it is. It wouldn't be too hard to come up with it. But the ones that we're mentioning right now are um are fantastic. The Pats, the Nicoles, the Mary Johns, they're all just super wicked smart. Landy is a good Cooper fan, and she was so nice to meet Landy. I gave you 2 shouts out, Landy, but I wanted to read 2 of the reviews from Bruce's book. So I have the Kindle version. It's going to get reviewed. Becoming God Realized, Stories from My Journey. Bruce is still AWOL. I think aliens got him. But how do I go back? It's like I'm not even logged in anymore. Maybe I'm not. It's got 1 review now, but that will change very quickly. So there's a Kindle. It's $9.99. The hardcover. There's a hardcover, which is cool. I don't even have hardcovers on anything. I'd like to get them, but the hardcover is only $5 more than the paperback, which is $25. So it's like, why not pay $5 more for the hardback? Would be my belief. Trying to get to the. Okay, that's probably the reason I'm struggling here. I'm in Amazon, not Kindle. Even though Kindle owns Amazon owns Kindle, of course. Okay, I'm going to read the testimonials. Becoming God Realized is a passionate and sincere testament of a journey to a master teacher and the life that unfolded in making known the unknown. Bruce's storytelling had me enthralled to see where he was headed and what he had learned. Bravo. Steve Klein from the Ramtha School of Enlightenment, and Ramtha will come up. Event services manager, retired. Is what Steve does for a living now. Bruce Smith's Becoming God Realized, Stories from My Journey. I should have put sorry, I didn't put the rest of the title in it. It's Becoming God Realized, Stories from My Journey. Is a truly transformative piece of literature that transcends the ordinary. A testament to Smith's tenacity as an investigative reporter, this book cleverly weaves together profound narratives of spiritual awakening with the same rigor and meticulous detail that defines his journalistic work. Becoming God Realized is more than a book. It is an invitation to embark on a spiritual adventure that promises to both challenge and enrich. Bruce Smith has gifted us a work that is informative as it is inspiring, a true beacon for those seeking to ignite their own spiritual awakening. What a great review. And that's from Nikki Broughton, of course, from the Vortex. Well done, well written. That just reminds me of CooperCon, but those are great reviews, and there's more about Bruce's book. And Bruce is a master storyteller. He went to a school that teaches storytelling, where I think you can kind of, this is how Bruce would say it, you kind of learn your chops. You kind of can brush up on your chops as far as your storytelling. And he's a master storyteller. He told me a story while we were together in his truck in Seattle. It's just the 2 of us. And I was hoping to get a story, and it was a little bit Cooper related, but it was a story told from Bruce driving the truck. Hey, Packer. And he told me the story while we were, I think, because I was bumming rides from everybody, right, Packer? And saving a little beer money. And Bruce gave me a ride back from the museum, and he told me this story, and it literally had me in tears. I was crying. I mean, tears were coming out of my eyes. It was so freaking funny. And there was a break in the story where he throws something out, and I just lost it. It was so funny. It was just like, oh my god, this is the funniest story I've ever heard in my life, and it just has more of effect when you're sitting next to the person telling it. But I had tears coming out of my eyes. He's such a good storyteller. I love this guy. Yes, thank you, Patty, for reminding me of that. Might as well do it because who knows where the hell Bruce is. He either got picked up by aliens or by Blevins. But yes, Bruce did go to high school with Bill O'Reilly. It was that in Bill, of course, Bill O'Reilly from Hard Copy and the Bill O'Reilly Show that was on Fox. What I can't, maybe you remember what school that was, but what Bill O'Reilly was from. Oh gosh, there was because there was some kind of scuttlebutt about where Bill O'Reilly was from because Bill O'Reilly was trying to kind of downplay his upbringing to be really middle class or lower middle class, whichever, or working class. Sorry, I think that would be the better word. And there was some scuttlebutt about where he lived, but I think Bill, he's kind of like me. He went and found the deed to the house where he lived, Levittown. Thank you, God, Patty, you're on it. Levittown, or whatever you said. But yeah, Levittown, New York. Is Levittown? You know New York better than I do, of course. I lived there briefly in Greenwich Village, which is a whole nother book. But yeah, it was Levittown, and Bruce was in. I cannot remember if Bruce was in Bill's grade. He may have been a grade below Bill, and this is why it sucks when he didn't show up because I could ask him. But he did go to school with Bill O'Reilly. I think he remembered something about a project he did with Bill or some. He said he had some interaction with him. He definitely knew him in high school, which is interesting. So we know where Bill O'Reilly went on to, and then we know where Bruce went on to. Bruce's life is no slouch. Bruce has had some very, very interesting encounters in his life. He worked as a sound man. He worked in Nashville for a while. As I mentioned earlier, he was cleaning the beaches in New York for, environmental early stuff. I mean, this is way before Greenpeace and things like that. He was literally working to clean the beaches and getting anything off the beaches that could be hazardous to not only humans, but the sea life that could come up on the beach or in the water. He did a lot of that. And so Bruce has had a really, really interesting career. Of course, I'll get into this in a little bit about Bruce. It was something that was really kind of changed the trajectory of Bruce's life. It was something called the Ramtha School of Enlightenment, and I'll get into Ramtha. Larry King's story time would be priceless. Yeah. Forget about it. Give me your money. And here's my cane again. I'll give it to you because you asked, because you put this up. Of course, I know I go from Zodiac to Cooper a little bit, but give me your money and your car keys right now. All right. I ain't no Zodiac killer. Just give me your money and your car keys. Oh, I love Larry Kane, man. I had to do it. Levittown was a suburb prefab 50s concept. Yes, that is true. I do know that. Packer, never forget Bruce talking alone at a table to the tooth woman about her Cooper relative. He was gracious to give her that time. He's a good egg. He did. And that kind of screwed me up, Packer, because there was the crazy lady who I think you're talking about. And then he started talking, and then the crazy lady seemed to disappear. And because I was going to sit by them, and God help me, I didn't. We wound up talking, and then somebody else's wife showed up, and I don't want to say who this person's wife was. People on this channel know, but she wound up being in the same seat as the crazy lady who claimed to know who D.B. Cooper was. But Bruce definitely gave her the time of day, and we told her that too. And I think Packer and Darren and Ryan, definitely Ryan Burns, huge shout out to Ryan Burns, the way he handled that whole situation. Because when she first kind of piped up, I was sitting next to Packer, and she started, just kind of like, I know who Cooper is, or whatever she did. And I was kind of like, how do we handle this? Packer's one of the owners of the whole proceeding. So I'm like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to leave it to you, bro. And so she kind of calmed down, and we didn't really have to do anything. But later she starts talking again. And approaches the stage when Tom Cade does another speech about Cooper's tie, and I actually walked up on the stage. This is a huge no. You don't do that. I wasn't there when that happened. I'm sure Packer was, and Ryan was, but I think Ryan sent me the video of it. I think Ryan went up on stage and kind of calmed her, but Bruce was great with her, and Ryan calmed her down. So Brian and Bruce both did a great job there with keeping this lady ground to reality, because we basically said, look, if you have a suspect, we're more than, there's 50 guys in this room that are willing to look into it for you. Trust me, people are looking for new suspects and digging into them. And from what I remember, this guy wasn't a bad suspect. He had a few things going for him, that shouldn't have been written off, but you don't do it that way. This stuff has already been pre-planned. The speeches were written. The PowerPoints were done. You don't just rush a stage to say you're right. You have to make your case. Go write a book. Go write a blog. Go do a YouTube channel. Go on somebody else's podcast. Hey, Darren would have had her on. Believe me, Darren would have anybody on. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way, because Darren likes to shake it up. Okay, let's face it. It's true. Darren Schaefer has 1 million downloads. Congratulations to Darren and to Russell. But Darren would love to have this woman on. And I'll tell you this, if Darren did find that woman, y'all know her name. Somebody out there remembers her name. I can't remember. My memory's terrible. But if Darren has that woman on his show, I'm going to listen to that, okay? Because she's crazy. But anyway, what she was doing was she was going around CooperCon getting pictures of people holding this little bitty airplane, like a little bitty model airplane. I can't remember what else, but she said, hold the airplane, and maybe something else, a picture of them. Crap, I can't remember, but she wanted certain people to be holding this airplane. Maybe John, you probably too smart to do it. I'm an idiot. I did it. I think Darren did it. But I'm holding this little, it looked like a little red, maybe a biplane. I don't remember. And she took the picture of it. And Pat talked to her quite a bit. Pat actually kept her calm. Shout out to you too, Pat. I remember you keeping the lady very calm. And you actually, Pat, you did the picture too, didn't you? But anyway, this is going to you, Pat. So she took a picture of me holding the little airplane, this crazy lady. And she kind of was crazy. I don't feel bad saying that. She's batshit crazy. And Pat the lady takes a picture of me holding the little plane or whatever else I'm supposed to do. And I said, yeah, sure, whatever, I don't mind. And then Pat later told me, she goes, Drew, you do realize that plane came from the gift shop? Because I swear, I thought the plane was part of this guy's possessions, like the real DB Cooper's little plane. And if anybody can find those pictures, I'd pay money for them. I swear I would. But it was funny because Pat said, Drew, you realize the plane came from the gift shop at the Museum of Flight. I busted out laughing. That was so dang funny. You have the airplane pics? How did you get them? If I'm in one of them, or I'll even take yours, whoever, I'll take any of them. I'll take any of the airplane pics. Send it to my email. If you send it to my email, I'll put it up. I'll tell you that. Packer, 1416 Vancouver, Portland suburb, where Tina Bar is, Kiggins Theater. Yes, that's Packer. And I still believe Ryan and Chris, the three purveyors of CooperCon, or the DB Cooper, whatever you guys are calling it now. It's hard to lose CooperCon, isn't it, Packer? People were so used to calling it that, but I know you guys tried to change it up a little bit when you took it over, and you guys are doing a great job, all three of you guys. But the next CooperCon is November 14th through the 16th in Vancouver, Washington, Portland suburb. So there'll be a Tina Bar tour. So if you go to that at the Kiggins, it's been at the Kiggins Theater before years ago. I think the last 2 years were the Museum of Flight in Seattle, but this will be back at the Kiggins Theater in Vancouver, which is just north of Portland, Oregon. So there will be trips to the Tina Bar, and it won't probably cost you anything. I don't think so, unless the Fazios are out there with their credit card machine. Personally, never been to the Tina Bar. I'd love to go. That'd be a good reason to go. But definitely remind folks when they can start buying tickets to pre-buy tickets to CooperCon, and it's held in Vancouver at Kiggins, when they go on sale and when they can pre-buy them. Pat was great with her. Thanks again, Pat. Yeah, she really was. I do recall Pat talking her down and calming her down a lot. I think they talked. You have my pick, really? Holy cow! I don't know what the hell happened to Bruce, but the show must go on. But I'd love to see that pick. I probably look like the bigger idiot than I am. Kathleen Johns was the queen of the vortex. Kane the king. Yeah, Kathleen Johns. There's so many things in Cooperland that translate into Zodiac world. You know, Cooper's a hijacked plane, hijacking. No one got killed. Some people probably got some level of trauma. I'm not downplaying that, but people actually died in the Zodiac case. We know at least 5 did in the chronicles. But it's so weird that you have people that line up to each case that here's this guy of this case and this guy of that case. Like Darren's kind of the Ned of the case. Ned DeHaan, who's covering a lot of Cooper stuff lately, but there's so many crossovers between the two cases that are so similar. She gave them to you? Did she text them to you on your phone? Or how did you get them? I'm assuming she texted them to you. You never told me that. See, you're holding out on me, Pat. I wanted those pictures because I'll laugh my head off. I can't believe I took a picture with a plane from the museum gift shop. So stupid. Wait for a minute. I don't remember where you read it. Yeah. You're talking about Cheney and the lung cancer. That would be interesting to me because maybe he was a smoker, and I have been asked that question at least 10 times through the years. I don't know if Don Cheney was a smoker. I did ask Norma Gordon that knew him really well, and she had no memory of it. So I don't know. Maybe he did. Like my dad smoked when he was in the Marines, but quit. I don't know if Don was a regular smoker. I do know that he drank. I can tell you that for sure. I can tell you he was an avid big game hunter. He would go hunting for days on end in the forest by himself and live off what he shot. That I can prove. That's interesting because he downplays this in an interview with, let's bring on the most famous person of this show, Corky. And if everybody remembers, and this reminds me, Nicole, I'm glad I just see that you're still on. Because I'm going to email Jim Hetrick to see if he remembers why Ted's code name in Vietnam was Touchdown. That's his code name. Everybody had a code name in Vietnam. I guess if you got in trouble, they could say, hey, Touchdown just got captured by the NVA in Laos or whatever. But this reminded me of that coming up in your podcast, because this goat is nicknamed after Ted Braden, which is Corky, because Ted's nickname as a child was Corky. So this goat is named after Braden. Corky is the name of the goat after Ted Braden. But I'm going to ask Jim Hetrick if he recalls why. I hope he's okay too. Now I'm starting to worry. I think this happened before with Bruce and something. Let me check the email. Nothing. I mean, nothing. Now he should be on for sure, even if I got the time wrong. You know what I'm saying, Patty? You're right. I'm a little worried. You got me right on that. But anyway, Ted's code name in Vietnam was Touchdown. Jim Hetrick's was Raven. And I don't know how those were assigned. I know Bud touched a little on that on the last podcast on D.B. Cooper. Where some of them were made because, they were making fun of somebody and they just kind of stuck, kind of like a regular nickname. But I'm going to ask Jim if he recalls if there was anything behind Touchdown that related, because I don't remember ever hearing Ted being a football fan or anything like that. I'm not sure. Maybe because he got the job done, putting in a positive spin. I honestly don't know why. I'll see if Jim remembers, but Jim's was Raven. Ted's was Touchdown. JD Bath was, of course, Bath. I mean, no, sorry, Tub, because his last name was Bath, like taking a bath. So his nickname was Tub. So that makes sense. So no explanation needed there for JD. But Ted's, I honestly don't know, but it was Touchdown, and Jim's was Raven. I don't know about Al Keller. Just trying to think of Team Colorado code names. So their code names are like nicknames, but they're more important because if you got shot down, whatever, they could talk about you without the enemy. If they were listening in, they wouldn't necessarily know you were talking about Braden or Jim Hetrick or JD Bath or Al Keller, etc. Yes, that's a good point, Plate C. Don definitely drank a lot before his polygraph. Yeah, he got so hammered that he couldn't take it. He was so hungover. I mean, you got to be pretty hungover not to take a polygraph, but I guess they don't want you coming in. I mean, how hungover? I mean, even if you're an experienced drinker, it's hard to get hungover from what I know. I'm not a drinker, so I don't know, but to be that hungover, and I don't know what time of day that the polygraph was scheduled, but it is true that he got so drunk the day before. You think he would get drunk the day of? I mean, maybe let's say it's scheduled for noon, the polygraph. Wouldn't he start drinking at? Do you usually hear back from him, Pat? Let me know. That's interesting. But I will ask for Nicole if there was anything behind that. And there was something else I'm supposed to ask Jim for somebody else who was asking. Maybe it was Tim Wallace. Shout out to Tim. Love Tim. I know, Pat, you love Tim. That's something we'll always have in common, Pat, is Tim. Because Tim's such a good guy. God love Tim. God love Tim. God save the Queen. God love England. God love Tim. No response. I don't know. I hope he's okay too. I will report back. I know you do, and I do too. We will always have that in common. Love Tim. Tim's just such a good guy. He's just he's a little gullible, but that's a good thing. It shows the sweet side of the guy. I wish I was like that because I'm kind of I can be a jerk. Okay, I admitted it now. When I like to go for blood sometimes if it's earned. And it's not necessarily who agrees with me on these cases or whatever. It's just people that say stupid shit like I 100% know this or that. You don't 100% know anything until you can show it. This is 100% a plastic goat that screams named Corky. Watch out for stuff like that. That's the stuff that irritates me that I might go after. But anyway, none of us are going to retire on any of it. Touchdown, Ted always made it to the ground. Yeah, he did. It could be from jumping out of helicopters. That's one thing that's true about Vietnam. And I think that Bud Gibson touched well on that in the last podcast. They had far better things to jump out of in Vietnam than a 727. Let's face it. You had helicopters, different planes that were better for it. They could fly lower to the ground. Of course, the thought was we could drop guys out over Laos or whatever out of a 727 and people would just assume it was supplies. We know about the test jumps in Thailand. Interestingly enough, there is a spotting of Ted in Thailand around that time. I can't prove it, so why advertise it? But there is. I don't even remember who said it, but I have it. It's like I'm totally disorganized, but I have that. What was interesting is some of D. Rogers' work reminded me to go back and look at some of my older emails. And I looked at one from Hank Birch, and it took me probably a year to realize his name was pronounced Birch. But there's another guy I'm worried about. You talk about Bruce. I'm worried about Hank too, because I haven't heard back from Hank at all. By phone or by email, I have not heard back from Hank. And Hank's a lot older than Bruce. And I saw Bruce a few months ago, and he seemed great, physically and otherwise. Mentally, physically, seemed great. Packer will back me up on that. Nicole, Pat, everybody. He seemed fine. So this is on you, Bruce. But anyway, it reminded me of Hank. A little worried about Hank. And, the Braden people know who Hank is. Of course, oversaw Braden at Fort Dix. But I was just going back through old emails, and this was like a 2.5, 3-year-old email, maybe longer. And Hank remembers when they were making the case against Ted Braden at Fort Dix for desertion, which I know Nicole believes was all just to cover up by the CIA. A lot of people do. You're not alone there at all, Nicole. I'm honestly don't know. I lean towards it being legit, but it could have been a cover up. I'm honestly not. I don't go all in either way on that. You could be right. But anyway, Hank remembered reading the case against Braden for a desertion out of Vietnam in late '66. And it specifically mentioned in the article, I think he may have called it Article 20, that Braden, when he came back from Vietnam, when he deserted Vietnam, it's got to trace his steps. I mean, obviously you deserted an active battle, so we got to know where you went. Okay, I deserted Vietnam. Where did you go? They have to know that because they're prosecuting you in a court-martial case. And Hank remembered distinctively, and Hank's a sharp guy. If you want to hear Hank talk about Braden, it's on the Vanish podcast. But anyway, at least he's recorded there. Wish I could have recorded it Altair. Didn't. Horrible mess up. Got a lot of emails from Al. Talked to Al on the phone twice for at least 2 hours. Lots of emails, of course. Got to borrow all his original material. But, I regurgitate, but, stuff forever. But Hank remembered reading the case against Braden for the court martial in 67, and it placed Braden at SeaTac in 67. No, late 68, coming back from Vietnam. Want to be right about my dates. It was December 66. Braden was at least at SeaTac. He doesn't know for how long, but of course we know Cooper knew Tacoma from the air, so Braden can at least be placed at SeaTac as per Colonel Hank Birch. And if you knew Hank, you would know that held a little more weight, because Hank was never this Braden has to be Cooper guy. He was just fascinated by Braden in general. He was not a hammer, has to be him guy. He really wasn't. He was just interested in Braden in general. If he was Cooper, great. If he wasn't, great. I don't care. I just want to know more about him kind of guy. And he wrote a nice long a report about Braden for his veterans group in Florida. He snowbirds in Florida. And I think he's from the Northeast, still lives in the Northeast, but he snowbirds in Florida when it gets cold up and wherever he lives. And he goes down to Florida. But his veterans group, I think, he is in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And he handed out all these copies of his report, which I helped him with a little bit. But Hank is a very, very sharp guy, very smart writer. And he's getting up there in age now. I'm sure he's got to be. I don't remember how old he was when he was overseeing Braden in confinement at Fort Dix, but he did remember, and I found that old email where he could place Braden at SeaTac in late 66. So that's kind of important that, for D.B. Cooperism. Made many mistakes. Barry Estes time was reckless, got very lucky. Probably spooked afterwards. Yeah, he definitely made mistakes. I think he almost got caught at the Stein killing in October. I can't believe I did Jason Collins' podcast on YouTube, and he was just having me run through the canonical Zodiac crimes. And I got to Paul Stein, and I swear I said December twice. Of course, it was October 11th. I just brain fog. So I apologize about that misspeak, but I fortunately corrected it. I hope Bruce is okay and that Blevins didn't find him. Now, knowing Bruce, he thought it was tomorrow. If he did, I'll have it back on, I promise, because I really need to talk to Bruce about a lot of things. Don getting hammered makes sense before the test. Clever, devious always, yes, and a sociopath liar. He is absolutely. If anybody was ever a sociopath on this planet, it was Don Chaney. But goofed about the timeline. Yeah, that's really his only major mistake, was having to move that timeline, and he had to because he was trapped. And this reminds me of my buddy Michael Sutta, the professor, regarding the Delphi case with Abby and Libby that were horrifically murdered by, looks like, allegedly, I'm going to say those words, Richard Allen. The trial hasn't happened yet, but it looks really bad now for Richard Allen as far as the perpetrator of the crimes against Abby and Libby in Delphi. My friend Michael can literally box him in on the Monohine Bridge, where of course the suspect, they always believe, was the good man on the bridge, so he dubbed the name Bridge Guy for those murders. I know I'm switching from Zodiac to Cooper, whatever, but I'm flowing now, so it's good. I'm getting 90% of this right. But my friend Michael, through PowerPoint, can box him in on that bridge, where he had to have been the attacker of Abby and Libby. He had nowhere else to go. He already admitted to being there that day. We know that. Richard Allen is already admitting to being on the bridge of the day of the murders. He has not confessed to being the murderer, but he has admitted to being, well, actually he did. He did confess to being the murderer to certain people, but not officially. I think he confessed to maybe his wife or something. I don't remember. Michael knows. He's going to shoot me for forgetting. But the way Michael can pin him in on the bridge is amazing because he's going by all the witness statements and he's got the timeline and he's got like you Google Earth of the bridge and it's all laid out in PowerPoint. They should really use that in court because Michael can box in Richard Allen where it's not really showing any other perpetrator but Richard Allen being on that bridge. And he shows how it could not have been anyone but Richard Allen. And I know a lot of people, for some reason, people like to defend that guy. The guy's a dirtbag. Sorry, did it. Reminds me of you, Packer, when you were talking about Avery, that dirtbag cat killer up in Wisconsin. Sorry, he's guilty. If you're going to tell your two buddies to throw your live cat in a fire, you probably killed that poor girl on your land. I'm sorry. And Packer's from the area where Stephen Avery's from. I think Stephen Avery's sorry, he's guilty. If you're going to throw a live cat in a fire, you killed a guy. So, the cops, I know there's making of a murderer on Netflix and it makes him out to be framed by the cops. I think the cops probably did go fast and loose to get him just because they knew it was him and they didn't want to dick around with it. So I think they slammed his ass. That's my personal belief. Avery got caught for the cat killing. And he did time for it. He told his two friends to throw his live cat into a fire on his property. If you're gonna throw a defenseless cat in a fire, you could easily kill a girl. Okay, just what I'm saying. Thank you for agreeing with that. I just, I think Dahmer was like an animal abuser, just a dirtbag. These YouTube videos can make anybody look innocent or guilty. They get the music going, and oh gosh, was it Paradise Lost? The one with the West Memphis 3. They have Metallica jamming in the background. Metallica allowed them to use their music, and good God, it sounds so cool. The drone footage and Metallica's booming. These guys must be innocent. Yes, Sonata is a genius. Those Netflix documentaries could make Hitler look innocent. Okay, they've got the production quality, they've got their drones, they've got the music rights, they've got the production team. You're hearing only from them. Nobody's counterbalancing jack squat. There's one like the new one out makes OJ look guilty, and I know Darnell, you don't like that. But sorry, I think OJ did it. Sorry, I love you to death, bro, but I think OJ did it. It's just who cares about the damn glove? I think OJ did it. The casing match if you're talking about Delphi, there was a not a casing, but a full bullet that was found between the two girls' bodies where they were found deceased under the bridge. There he is. Bruce is on. Hey, it's my fault. If you were late, my fault. But I did talk a lot about your book. Your new book.
Thank you. I apologize. I left notes for myself, and I took a nap. And what can I say? I spaced.
Hey, no problem. You're even that fresher, Bruce. But here's I'll just give you the brief what I covered. I did a little Cooperism, did a little Ted, did a little Zodiac because I got some Zodiac people. Talked a lot about your book. Talked about CooperCon. We talked about the crazy lady from CooperCon and how good you were with her. Pat Bolin is on. Nicole Legg is on, as you know, Nicole well. And Packer is on. Hopefully Packer's still here. And we talked about the crazy lady and how you were, and Packer was giving you kudos for giving her the time of day. And, Ryan got a shout out for helping as well, because like we said, we're all here. We're Cooper researchers. We're more than happy to sit down and listen to you about this gentleman that you knew. And like I mentioned, he actually isn't a bad suspect on paper. I don't know much about him, but, she just went about it the wrong way, unfortunately, but she was passionate about it, which is great. But on paper, he's not a bad suspect. I think he was a pilot. But yeah, you got a shout out.
And he also flew gliders, I think.
A glider pilot. Yeah, I think was he Canadian?
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
He was Canadian. Okay. That was interesting.
A number of years ago, I learned something in a workshop in Nashville 25 years ago when I was trying to be a rock and roll star. And one of my mentors at BMI Publishing said, he said to this little workshop, he says, I'll always give you 5 minutes, whatever you got. I'll talk to you. I'll listen to your tape. I'll listen to your song. I'll read your song lyrics, whatever. I'll give you 5 minutes. And he said, because coming up through the business, a guy like me gave me 5 minutes. He said, I'll always give you 5 minutes. And
that's a great story.
I've just carried that far. I said, now that's being a real mensch, you know? Because all of us, when we're starting out, half of us are crazy, half of us are impassioned. We're not thinking straight. We're just so full of ourselves and so, yeah.
Right here, you're talking about me.
Right, you know, so if we have 5 minutes that someone's in the business is recognized, he's got songs on the radio, he's got books on the New York Times bestseller list, whatever it is, if he's going to listen for 5 minutes, that at least validates what I'm doing is I'm on my path, you know?
Yeah.
And so
that's what it's about.
We call her the crazy lady, but I forget her name.
Yeah, I hate to say that. I'm really not trying to besmirch her, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, she went about it the wrong way, but I did talk to her, and Pat was great with her. You know, Packer pointed that out. Packer was good with her. Ryan was good with her. You know, Pat really, you know, tried to listen to her, and there's just something about female to female that's kind of calming, I think, that Pat really brought to it.
Yeah. I understand. I wasn't in the audience. I didn't see this, but I understand that she interrupted somebody's presentation.
Tom K. I wasn't there either. I had to leave early.
And
on
you know, went
Sunday.
up on stage. Yeah, went up on stage, interrupted somebody's presentation, and like took over the microphone. That's pretty ballsy. And it's either you know, in the realm of mental illness or it's misguided passions. But
it could be.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned too from the stage, because she first kind of interrupted when I was up there with the Foremans and Packer, and I think she kind of interrupted that a little bit, but we kind of calmed her a little bit enough there where she at least didn't rush the stage. But from what I'm told on Sunday, she did walk up on the stage when Tom was in the middle of a presentation.
I have some compassion for her, some understanding, because I've done similar things.
You got up on a live stage?
No, you know, it's a 10-year-old.
I mean, not as an invite, because I know you've done a lot of live speaking, obviously.
Now this is a 10-year-old in 5th grade, and this story is part of the story is in my book. That in the first. When I was in 5th grade, I had a new teacher that was new to teaching and new to the school and I had Catholic teachers. They were all nuns. And she was new to the convent. And she was very young, and she looked young. So she must have been like 21, you know, right, fresh out of college. And her name was Mother Michaeline. And she came in with radical new ideas that did not sit well with me. And she gave us a ton of homework every day. And for the first time in my life, she gave homework on the weekend.
That's the worst part. So were they pro-Catholic? I went to Catholic school for 5 years.
We're all Catholic. She's Catholic. I'm Catholic. It's a Catholic school, you know, and the convent is right next door to the school.
Yeah, ours was too.
I was in Cub Scouts, and my Cub Scout pack, and later my Boy Scout troop, was sponsored by the church, St. Anne's Church. So my Cub Pack meetings were held in the school next to the convent. And this one particular day, because it's the beginning of the year, September, the parents who were on the parental committee for the pack had a meeting after the pack meeting. So my friend Richie and I, whose parents were on the committee, we were kind of just floating around, and we left the basement area where the pack meeting was. We went outside and we're walking around, and we see the convent. And even though it's like 8 o'clock at night, all the lights are out. And we're going, you know, that new teacher, Mother Michaeline, she's really terrible. I can't believe she's given homework on the weekends. Do you know what she did like Thursday night with the math homework? Oh my God, that was like, you know, 14 questions. I couldn't believe it. I was up, you know, and we agitated each other. And then we go, yeah, down with Mother Michaeline. And Richie said, yeah, down with with Mother Michaeline. She gives too much homework. And I started shouting, down with Mother Michaeline. She gives too much homework. Down with Mother Michaeline. She gives homework on the weekends. Down with Mother Michaeline. One light goes on. Another light goes on. She gives homework on the weekend. Like. The lights up. Richie and I go, uh-oh. So we walk back to our parents. I totally forgot.
So funny. Like a guy said in the comments, LOL.
So that's Friday night. I didn't think about it the whole weekend. Monday morning, go to school. Mother Michaeline.
She wasn't there?
She's there. She's standing in front of the classroom. Or actually, she meets us because we put our bags like in line outside the school, and we all went in together. So we all went in by line. Everything was very organized. Very
yeah, we did that as well.
Yeah. So she's standing out in the front of the line with her arms crossed, and I've never seen before or since anybody's whose face was so red. Her blood pressure must have been 250.
Oh man, you didn't mess with those. You didn't mess with those sisters. I knew.
All the little girls. Now, like in 5th grade, all the little girls go around all the nuns.
Yeah.
Where the boys go,
yeah.
I'm out of here.
The boys were
what's wrong with Michael? What's wrong with? And she doesn't say a word. And then the girls like, oh my God, what happened to Mother Michael? Look at her face. She's not talking to anybody. What happened? Oh my God, what do you think happened? I don't know. She didn't say a word. We go into the classroom.
Not good.
Pledge of Allegiance. You're our Father. Whatever the prayers.
Hail Mary.
Right? Routine. Yeah, Hail Mary. I would like all the boys who attended the Cub Pack meeting Friday night to please stand up. I go, ooh. I look at Richie. He looks at me. Here we go. Stand up. Yeah. Now, and then she, who started shouting. And Richie didn't know what to do. And I figured, yeah, I shouted. It's unfair. So it's like, it was my revolutionary moment. It's like,
standing up.
Homework on the weekends ain't right. You got a problem with that? I got a problem with it, and I was
standing up for the first time.
Right. So I had an attitude. Richie said, oh my God,
we're all dead.
So Richie, we both got expelled for the day.
You got expelled over that?
Yeah. And
oh my God.
We weren't expelled from the building. We were placed in other classrooms, like we were the outcasts. And when you walk into the other classroom and you're the one coming in, everyone knows, what did you do?
Man, to get expelled for that.
What did you do that got you stuck with us? And it's like I'm in the back of the classroom and at lunch. So Richie, either he went home right away or I went home at lunch. And the instructions were that we were to bring our parents back to school. And Richie waited till the next day. I don't think he told his parents anything.
Cool. Yeah, he was trying to let it cool off.
I said, Mom, I've been expelled.
Yeah, just get the bad news out.
Mother Michaeline wants you to go to school and talk to her. And she did. And my mother, to this day, her entire life, 65 years, she continued to harp on this. She says, I had to get out of my work clothes and put on my dress and all because of you. And she told me that not every day of my life, but with frequency for the next 65 years. And so she went up and apparently apologized on my behalf because I wasn't in the meeting. And I was reinstated and I was back in Mother Michaeline's class the next day. And
that's good.
Yeah, and I developed this attitude is like, you can't fight City Hall. The odds are stacked up against me. So I shut down. Okay. So I went from an outspoken radical revolutionary at 10 years old about homework to I ain't saying nothing to nobody about nothing.
Yeah.
And went into this like shell and I stayed there in some ways I was catatonic, psychologically catatonic for a year. And I would do this. And then I I got summer vacation. I relaxed. All right. I'd come back in September and something would happen, would trigger me, and I'd go back into, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that in therapy, by the way. And yeah,
There's just a few
and
moons ago.
I write about this with
In your new book,
a degree of detail. Yeah,
yes,
about
Becoming
anger.
God Realized.
Yeah, yeah. So my book, so I would vacillate, and I would have these up and downs. I'm active. I'm catatonic. I'm yelling and screaming. I'm angry. I'm sitting in a corner, quiet. You know. So I had this vacillation back and forth. School destroyers of
That's so
individuals.
true.
People
That can't be better. That can't be better said than that. It really does.
It unless you have good teachers who can help you.
That's
with
true.
your
You will have a good teacher, hopefully here and there.
Right.
That will counteract some of that.
If I may give a shout out, because I ended up working in psychiatry for 14 years as a psychotherapist,
Sure.
as a recreation, as an activity therapist. I did things with patients besides just talking, and that's in the book too. And I've learned some real wisdom. Any kid, no matter what his traumas, whatever he's gone through, if he has 3 competent adults that make contact with him in some fashion, that kid will probably be okay. And it can be even nonverbal. And one of the examples that the author of this book, who wrote about this phenomena of what it takes to heal damaged kids, and almost
fascinating.
Almost all kids are damaged in some fashion, you know, and that's part of the human experience. And this one guy, he said he was a retired guy, and he, instead of being the grouch who would yell at the kids, "Get off my lawn," you know, you crappy kids, go away, you know, he never yelled at the kids. And his house was next door to the bus stop where the elementary school kids would wait for the bus. And on cold mornings, this was in Minnesota, he would bring out a tray of hot chocolate. Never said anything, just come out with the hot cocoa.
For everybody, or enough.
For everybody. If you wanted it, it was there. And then when you finished, you put your empty cup on the tray. He'd come, you get on the bus, he'd come back out, he'd get his tray. Next day, the same thing. You're right. Never said a word.
Wow. That's amazing.
That was a turning point for one of those kids. He was one of the 3 that kid had that touched him. And
it got him through his life.
Got him through. Yeah.
That's amazing. What a great story.
So to talk about my book.
That's a great story. I love it. You know, I'm a fan of it. I mean, all your stories.
Yeah, that story is not in the book, but I got 50 others. All these stories are all real. They all happened to me. And most of them are performance pieces. So as a professional story, I've been a storyteller on and off professionally, semi-professionally, you know, whatever. And for years. And these 50 stories show the arc of my development in life as a spiritual being. And most of it has to do with being a kid, you know, going to school. Boy Scouts.
The Boy Scout stuff was great because I think you did a little bit on Mountain News, which is your blog, of course.
A lot of my stories have been posted over the years. Some of these stories,
100% free on the Mountain News. If you go to Mountain News,
half of the stuff is already on the Mountain News.
Particularly free. There's no paywall. There's none of that.
Yeah. Oh no, it's free. I just paid the $19 to get the.
To keep your site up. Yeah. But it's great reading. It's just, I mean, it's more encapsulated. And there's some excerpts from this new book on there as well. And I was talking about the story you told me when we were in the truck together. And I didn't retell the story. I won't, for probably a good reason, but it literally left me in tears. It was so funny. You're the way you told that story to me and the way you hit it in the middle. It was so, the timing, the way you told it was just perfection. It was like, oh my God. I was like, it was like a bucket list item to have Bruce Smith tell me a story a foot away from me and be that funny. And I had tears coming out of my eyes. It was so funny the way you told it. It was a master class in how to tell the story. Of course, the story in itself is funny, but the way you told it made it double what it was, the way the
Are we
timing
talking
of it.
about? Are we talking about what the day that I thought my psychotherapist was an extraterrestrial?
We need to. No, we were talking about a book review that I read uh,
No.
on your book and where it came from, which you talk about a little bit in the book about AI in some of this AI from England, I believe, it had to do with.
Okay. Well, so anyway, I don't know what story you're telling me about, but let me tell you
You
a
told
story.
it to me, and I'll never forget it.
Okay, look. But I've forgotten. At least one of us.
It had to do with AI. I'll say that artificial intelligence.
Oh my God. Oh, my brain. Where is it going?
It was so damn funny though.
All right.
I had tears coming out of my eyes. I just like it was.
All right. Let me see what I can do, because I
It was
think,
exquisite.
let me tell you another story. All right. So the title of this story is "What to Say When Your Therapist Tells You You're Her Craziest Patient." This is a true story. Now, I've always believed in aliens, extraterrestrials, UFOs, and it's one of those subjects that transforms you in childhood, and you realize the rest of the world doesn't like me. What I believe, I don't think anybody else believes. It's like I see the world differently than everyone else. Whoa! So, I wasn't dissuaded, and over time, I found a few other true believers, and we kind of compared notes, and I shared three perspectives on extraterrestrials as a kid. One is they're real and they're here.
I believe you.
Okay. And there's a lot of different species. Some of the species that are here look just like us because genetically we're part of their gene pool. We're just different, but we're, I don't know, part of the same tribe or the same family. So they look like us, and they're here for reason number three, and that is they want to learn more about our emotionality because they're so technologically advanced that somehow they've bred out the genetics for emotionality. So they can't tell jokes. They don't laugh. They don't sing a song. And they're pretty robotic, technologically advanced, but not a lot of fun at a party. Okay. So they're here because they want to spruce things up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the aspects of losing one's emotions genetically is that physiologically the body gets cold. It's cold to the touch, like the phrase "cold as a cold fish." Yeah. So these extraterrestrials that look like us but aren't emotionally like us are cold to the touch. And I'm thinking one day, this is, I'm in the preparation. This is 35 years ago. I'm in the preparations of leaving New York, leaving the woman I'd been living with for 14 years, selling my house, selling my business to go join the Ramtha School in
Was
Yale.
that Barbara?
That's BJ. It's Barbara. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So there's a lot of turmoil in my life, and I'm in a lot of therapy. I was seeing my therapist twice a week at that point. And some weeks it was 3 times a week because that's how tense everything was in my life. But at any rate, I'm lying in bed and I'm going, if I was an extraterrestrial and I wanted to learn about emotions and get real close to emotions, study it, learn it, be part of it, the best position to be in would be a psychotherapist because you're dealing with emotions all day long.
It's a bit hard job.
And you don't want anybody to touch you. So you're going to be like a real Freudian psychoanalyst where there's no touching, no handshakes, no fist bumps, no elbow.
Did they tell them that? Did they tell them that? This is fascinating. Did they tell them that? Like, don't touch or
This is an insight. My therapist, as it turned out, is a true blue. She was fresh out of school, really skilled, and really Freudian, and totally believed in no touch. We never shook hands. In fact,
wow,
pay the bill.
That's so interesting.
She would lean over from her chair with the invoice and hand it to me. She'd hold one corner, and I would reach up and grab the other. That's as close as we got in 3-4 years of psychotherapy.
Holding each side of the paper.
And I would take the invoice. I'd write the check.
Yeah.
I would pass the check back. She would. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Bruce. Yeah.
And being careful not to even
800 sessions or whatever. I mean, we're talking a lot of therapy. So I'm going, oh my God, my therapist has never touched me.
That is just
clearly
contemplating that alone is
I'm even crying on your show here in the podcast.
Contemplating that though, I 800 sessions, not even a bump, not even not a hug or a I don't know. I got to
pat on the shoulder.
I will think about that for days.
Better
I'm
days.
the kind of guy that will think about that for days.
Okay, so nothing.
That's amazing.
I'm lying in bed and I'm saying, "Oh my God, what if my therapist? I call her Sally in the book.
Mm-hmm.
What if she's an extraterrestrial?" I go,
wow.
Oh shit!
That's just where you come out of nowhere with this stuff.
I'm cooked. My goose is cooked because one of three things could happen.
Just to contemplate that.
She's an extraterrestrial. And now that I've outed her,
I already have the book on Kindle.
She's going to go back home to the Antares constellation planetary system, whatever, and leave me alone.
But her intent was to truly help. Do you think?
She helped me a lot.
Was there intent to make money on you, or was there intent to really help you?
Well, she helped me. She made money. Back in those days, it's $35 a session. Which is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Nowadays she probably charges $200 a session.
Oh, easily.
Yeah. So at any rate, so I, or is she going to kidnap me, beam me up, and she's going to take me to her starship and he found me out. It's like, the gig is up, fellas. We've been outed. Let's get out of here. And so I had a session the next day, and I walk in, and I'm sitting on. At this point in my therapy, I'm not sitting up. I'm lying down on her couch. And I just sit. I don't lie down. I just sit, and I don't know what to say.
Yeah, you didn't have one of those typical psychiatrist lounges or whatever they call them.
It was a regular, nice, big, long leather
chair.
Couch.
Comfortable enough.
Yeah, it wasn't a recliner. It was a couch. Anyway. Yeah. So after about 5 or 10 minutes of silence, like of therapeutic silence. She just hangs me out to dry. She doesn't say a word. And then she clears her throat. It looks like you're having trouble getting going today, Bruce. I go, yeah.
And you're on your dime.
Yeah, this is I've already blown 10 minutes of my money, right?
Well, yeah.
Silence, because she charges by the minute.
By the hour.
Right. So, and she goes, well, what's up? And there it was. And I said, I said to myself, like with Mother Michaeline, I'm either going to go for it or I'm not, And if you're not telling the truth in psychotherapy, in your therapy sessions, I mean, what's the point,
Yeah, you're wasting your time and money.
I said, well, I think you might be an alien. And she said, oh, I thought you knew I was Jewish.
I love it.
Said, no, I know you're Jewish. I'm not talking about, like a Mexican fruit picker alien. I'm talking like
you said I really believe you're an alien.
Yeah, I said, yeah, I think I'm just wondering, that you might be from the Pleiadian star system,
God, this is why I love Bruce Smith, man.
She goes, Bruce, let me get this straight. You don't think I'm from the planet Earth? You think I'm from outer space? And I said, well, I'm not sure. And I started going, so there's aliens, there's extraterrestrials, they look just like us, and they don't have emotions, and they're cold to the touch. You've never touched me. We've never shaken hands. You've never given me a hug, not even a pat. I'm telling her this, and she's going.
So she kind of freezes, or?
No, she has an anxiety attack.
Oh my God.
She wraps her arms around her. And she's just rocking herself back and forth in a self-soothing thing, And she goes, Bruce, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my God.
No, I knew some of her other patients because we both worked in the same VA hospital in different psychiatric sessions, which is how I knew her, which is how I picked her as a therapist. And
Yeah,
and
that's how you found her.
she worked with the guys from Vietnam that were coming back from the jungle.
Oh wow, a lot of PTSD and this
Oh,
thing.
and they love the taste of blood. I mean, they just
Yeah,
her patients were really crazy,
yeah,
and I'm
they're
crazier
crazy.
than they are. Now, I felt elated, like I had just been elected to the Psychiatric Hall of Fame. I'm the craziest. I win! I win! I'm the craziest. Right?
But
I'm feeling
you
elated, and
but
she is going down the toilet. She's having a tough day, and she's going. Oh, she starts moaning. Oh God.
oh my God.
Oh God. And I can only. She and I have never talked about this, but I can only envision that she saw years worth of hard work with me. Ooh, just going down the toilet. Somebody, everything flushed out. Years of her work. Right? It wasn't worth the money. This guy just has blown a hole in my psyche, and I'm jubilant. All right.
That
So I'm
story alone,
sitting,
that is it.
I'm
That
sitting
story's in the
there.
book. That
Huh?
story's
It's in
in
the
the
book.
book.
Yeah, this story's in the book. Yeah, and so I'm sitting there elated, and she's sinking into her chair, and I realize I've got to save her. I've got to help her. So
That's amazing.
I totally changed the subject, and I start talking about Catholic school, Mother Michaeline. I talk about my mother, my issues. I talk about my sexual impotency. And by the end of, and she starts taking notes. All right. So, she's a well-trained psychotherapist.
Yeah, well educated.
She gets back in the saddle. It's like, okay, this has been a rough ride, but he's talking about Catholic school and his mother. So it's time for me to start taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of my session, she was as good as new. She was back to normal. I walked out of my session and I said, Bruce, you did really good work in there today.
I love it. That
All right?
story alone's worth the book. Price of the
Yeah.
book.
So we never talked about it ever again. I knew I can't bring up the UFO thing. Sally just can't handle aliens. Okay.
Yeah,
And there was lots
too early.
of other things to talk about. All right. And we talked about how I cope with a world that thinks I'm crazy for going to the Ramtha school, leaving a good woman, leaving a home and family, and everybody thinks I'm joining a cult and losing my
Go through
mind.
your timeline real quick though, because I know you did the beach thing and the
That's right. I had
environmental,
sold my beach. I had sold
and
my
then
beach.
you went down to Nashville before
That's
you
later.
made it up to P&W to do Ramtha, right?
No. So I'm in New York. Grew up in New York.
Right.
And the rest. And I'm working in various psychiatric hospitals, the VA included, Northport VA to be specific. I cleaned beaches for 8 summers in the metropolitan.
I covered that earlier.
Machinery that did that. I sold the house, said goodbye to BJ, get in the truck, and I'm driving to Yelm. And I spend the next 10 years in the Ramtha school. Then I go to
you went to
Nashville.
Ramtha school first before you went to Nashville.
Right. And part of being a Ramtha student was me learning to follow my dreams. One of the main things that I learned from Ramtha is trust yourself, and gave me some of the meditative skills to work my way through the anxieties and the doubts and, oh my God, what if this doesn't work out, or how am I going to pay the bills? And developing self-confidence and being more creative to the point where I've got to tell my stories. I've got to sing my songs. I'm not afraid of the microphone. I'm not afraid to be.
You're a master storyteller, like somebody said. You are.
Thank you for saying that. And it doesn't come easy peasy. You got to work at it like anything else.
You're great. You are a master at your craft.
So I'm commuting from Nashville back to Yelm to go to the Ramtha school and things like that. So and that continues for another 10 years.
Explain Ramtha a little bit. I mean, because I know obviously Ramtha is would you say a deity that's channeled by JC Knight, or how is Ramtha explained? I know Ramtha is like thousands of years old, or is there a date, or Ramtha is channeled by JC Knight, and then when JC channels Ramtha will be in a state where you can ask questions to Ramtha, or how does you've told me before, but I can't remember exactly. When you go to the camps, you can share ideas, but when you're getting the real knowledge of Ramtha, is that when JC is in his meditative state and you can ask questions, or they come out later? How does that all work?
All right, let me tell you what I know, because who Ramtha is exactly, I really don't know. And I don't know anybody that really does know who Ramtha is exactly, but I can tell you what he says, and I can tell you what I observed. Here's my understanding of what's going on. Jay-Z Knight is a woman. She's a couple years older than me, so I'm 75.
Yeah, I think I said C. It's Jay-Z Knight. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Jay-Z Knight. So Jay-Z Knight is a woman who channels the persona, the beingness of Ramtha, and he calls himself Ramtha the Enlightened One. And so she goes into some kind of meditative state, and she really totally trips out. I mean, she just zones out. She's not in her consciousness goes elsewhere.
Yeah.
She says what I've heard her say is that she goes through like the white light, the tunnel, like the near-death experience kind of thing, that she's going through something like that.
Yeah.
And she
an
goes
altered
to
state.
Yes, and she goes to this room that's very comfortable, very loving, very secure. She's very happy to be there, and it's very well lit. It's very bright. It's very illuminated, so it's high energy. And she says, it seems like I'm there for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden, I get turned around and go whoosh back down the tunnel, and I'm back in my body. When in reality, it could have been 10, 15 hours that I was.
Yeah, there's no concept of time like an indie.
Time is gone. All right, so she's there.
There's no concept. It could have been 5 minutes or 5 years. You don't know.
Yeah. So there are two kinds of channels, and she's called a trance channel because she goes somewhere else. Her consciousness goes somewhere else, and she's in this trance state where an other being can come in. And Ramtha says that he enters her body through her occipital lobe, the back of the brain back here, and that he comes in and he takes over all of her nervous system functions. So he walks and talks. Initially he had like a British accent, and I don't know why. And he spoke.
So Jay-Z will talk like Ramtha, like in the voice of Ramtha, or sort of.
It's Jay-Z's body.
She's a petite, attractive. She's kind of a petite, attractive. Somewhat a little bit elderly now, but attractive, petite woman.
Yeah, I see the two. I mean, when Ramtha is in Jay-Z's body, it's very clear that it's a male persona, male energy. The way he walks. The first time I ever saw him, I go, my God, he's my kind of guy. The way he walked and the way he addressed him, I said, this man, this being knows how to command men in battle. He's somebody
coming out of this petite woman's body. It's amazing.
And Jay-Z dresses to that. So she ties her hair back in a bun, and she wears clothing. She looked like just the Nehru jacket or something from India. It's kind of she's not wearing Western clothes per se. She looks kind of more Eastern-ish or Middle Eastern kind of thing. And it's unisex. It's something that men or women could wear. And Ramtha just comes across as such a balls to the wall.
Like a Napoleon type, Napoleon at Waterloo.
He walks in, he goes, "Greetings, masters. How be they today?" Authority. Like, oh, okay, whoa, we're ready for a ride. Whereas when Jay-Z's just in her own body,
it's totally unlike that.
She's totally femmy. She's got the long blonde hair. She flips.
Yeah, what she looks like. She is.
I experience her as a sexualized, manipulative, flawed,
got some money, flashy a little.
Yeah, works it. She works the femme. She works the looks. She's had a lot of plastic surgery.
That's so amazing, Bruce, because you can see like promo material. You're seeing through Jay-Z, but Ramtha is so real.
Oh, very much so. Her promo material is all airbrushed, to look good and young and
which can't. Never.
What happened to enlightenment here?
Yeah,
you're putting on a show. But that's her, okay. And in all due respect, she organized and administrated a school that I learned greatly, and I credit her. I thank her. And I have a lot of gratitude.
And you still do.
And I still do.
To this day.
So for me, I have mixed feelings towards Jay-Z, because Jay-Z is a mixed bag.
Yeah, yeah,
She does some good things,
yeah.
and
Because
she
I know
does
you
some
lean
really
left.
crappy things.
I know you lean left politically, and Jay-Z not
Oh,
so
yeah.
much.
Oh, she's
So
a
there's
total Trumper.
that's going to create a little bit of,
Oh,
you
well,
know,
yeah. I
rift.
would not. I left the school 15 years ago, 2010, somewhere around there, somewhere.
Yeah,
And the school really became highly politicized around 2015, just when Trump was running for
yeah.
president the first time. And Jay-Z and Trump, for me personally, I consider them to be like two peas in the same pod.
Wow. So she was
They,
that
they,
right
they,
wing, and
they make decisions the same way. They run their organizations the same way. Jay-Z is totally about loyalty. Competence, irrelevant. As long as you're loyal to her. Whether you can do the
wow.
job, it's irrelevant. No, at least,
Did any of that come out in Ramtha
no,
at all? Never.
no.
Which is interesting. That's
Ramtha,
amazing.
if you can't do the work, buddy, you're not
So
doing the work. I
Ramtha's
mean,
totally different.
total straight shooter.
Nothing pro
Ramtha,
Trump or high right
well,
wing coming out of
he,
Ramtha.
I haven't heard anything directly from him about Trump because I didn't attend the events.
Or conservatism in general, or
Yeah,
whatever, Trump would be
but
called.
I'm here to tell you the little that I've seen in terms of blurbs and clips and video things and synopsis, and certainly what people are telling me, is that Ramtha has been, he may not be now, but has been very supportive of the Trump candidacy and is supportive of the effects that we're seeing now, where American society is being turned upside down and inside out. We're basically, I would not be surprised if a year from now, Medicaid is gone, half the people on Medicare are off the rolls, and half the people on Social Security aren't getting their checks. I think the turmoil and the destruction, the tear down of the structure of American society will be enormous. And I think by the end of I think Trump's goal, my speculation is that by the end of Trump's 4 years in office, and he'll run again in 2028. He wants to be president for life, as far as I can see. I don't think there will be Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Any of those things will all be gone by 2028, and that will be the election. Do you want the new world? Do you want the Trump world, or you want the old world? And I think what those of us, I think the effects, the impacts, and I see my book and what I'm writing towards is those of us who don't want to live in the Trump world. What do? And we have to build a new world for ourselves. And for me, building that world starts in consciousness. What do I want? What do I prefer? Where do I want to live? What kind of relationship do I want with Mother Nature? What kind of
You can
relationship
control
do I want?
your own life, your own.
Right. We just have to really focus and really zero in. Who do I want to live with? How do I want to be treated? I want to live with creative people. I want to live with people who are mature and whose emotions, they're not going crazy. They're not jumping up on the stage and interrupting someone's presentation and grabbing a microphone or shouting.
No names mentioned.
Gates down with Mother Michael.
Yeah.
That kind of excessiveness. That it's more tempered, it's more mature, and that we're not trying to figure things out, but we're living more from the heart. What is the heartfelt? What is the loving resolution of issues, debates, concerns? How do we build a loving world, where we take care of each other, where we know each other's needs, where we're not overwhelmed by other people's needs, and that we are more self-reliant, we are more sovereign, we're more capable, we're more mature, we're wiser, we're more insightful, we're more mindful. And as we focus on those concepts, we will begin to select this. It's just little incremental decisions. I want this and I don't want that. I'm not going to watch the news. I'm not going to get upset. Okay, I'm going to meditate a little bit more, or I'm going to go for a walk.
I'd advise anybody to get into that.
Yeah,
no matter what political side of the aisle, I would advise anyone to do that.
Not everybody wants to do that. A lot of people want to go to war. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I used to be a super prepper. One of the aspects, Trump people, Ramtha students, have been preppers from day one. We,
Yeah, it kind of appeals to a prepper, a doomsday
yeah, I mean,
prepper.
we have always felt that the world was going, the world as we knew it, and society as we knew it, was going to radically change, and that
Mhm.
climate change, and which is how I got into the Ramtha School, was through the beach cleaning, working with
Yeah,
nature,
I remember
working
you
on the
telling me
beach.
that.
Yeah, and the first things I heard from Ramtha was him discussing global climate change. And back in the 80s, nobody was talking about global
Nobody
climate.
was talking about climate change or
And and I, in the 80s, because I worked on the beaches, I could see the changes in the maritime
yeah.
environment.
I think everybody wants clean air, clean water. It doesn't matter who you support. To not want clean air and water is insanity,
Yeah,
and to protect the planet for the future.
right.
That just seems like one issue that I think everybody should get on board with.
Right, and the whole question of cost basis analysis kind of thing. What is it? What is the cost to society to build a petrochemical plant? Or to use coal fired energy? Because there's costs. You want to have electricity, but then
Carbon
you're putting
footprint,
smoke in the air. Through your smokestack. So, and I think for me, the choice has to be for Mother Nature, protecting Mother Nature, protecting the clean air. And
the water,
if that means we have to develop sources of energy that are
alternate
more
sources.
expensive, yeah, right, then that's what we have to do. For instance, I just bought a new car. For the first time in my life, I bought a new car. And I bought a car that is a hybrid, super duper hybrid, that when the batteries are fully charged, I get 92 miles to the gallon.
Wow, God, I'd love
Yeah,
to get that.
right. It's
Especially with
called.
this price of gas in Texas or everywhere. And B&W, it's higher. I know.
Yeah,
Just coming back from Seattle.
and this is the time to buy it. It cost me 50 grand to buy this car.
Wow.
To buy it next week. I mean, next month, it's going to cost me $60,000. Because of the tariffs. Because it's built in Japan. My car was built in Japan.
Oh, it's that new Japanese company that kind of
It's a
competes with
Toyota.
Tesla.
It's a Toyota. That's a
Oh,
Toyota
it's a
that's built
Toyota, a
in.
Prius. Is it
Not a
all
Prius.
electric or is it?
It's a RAV4 plug-in hybrid. So
I
that
know a
means
guy that bought one.
okay.
It
And
was very expensive, but yeah, the mileage is amazing.
yeah, and what it does is it has a super duper big battery, and I have two electric motors. I have one electric motor that's totally dedicated for electric drive, for electric
Driving.
transmission, and it's located in the rear, and it runs the rear wheels.
Hmm.
Whereas the hybrid gas electric integrated,
Wow.
where the computer decides, yeah, we're going to do a little gas, a little electric, we're going uphill, it's going to be all gas. Oh, we're going downhill, we can go electric. So the computer makes all that determination. That's in an
Hmm.
integrated hybrid drive system, and that's in the front. Okay, so the front wheels are being driven by a hybridized computer controlled, administrated, you know, kind of thing. And all I'm doing is, I hit a button. Well,
Yeah, you're ready to go.
I'm driving them up. The computer does all the work, right? And so, and the gas engine, if my battery's low, the gas will then be the generator to generate the electricity to charge the battery. So when I'm in this total, when the computer says we're fully charged and we're going to decide exactly what to do, I'm going to get at least 70 miles to the gallon. And if the battery's really low, then I got to do a lot of charging.
Yeah.
I'm going to get like 15, 20 miles to the gallon. It's going to go back to the old
It
way.
depends on the charge level. That's interesting. It depends on charge level of the
Right. So
battery.
I've got to figure out a way to charge this car,
Yeah.
and I live in an apartment building, and I'm not going to run an extension cord out my window down
Yeah.
the hallway, So I've got to figure something. But I live in Olympia, Washington, and that's one of the advantages of living in the capital city of one of the bluest, most progressive liberal states in the United States. We got a lot of charging stations.
Charging stations.
Because every state building has got like 10 or 15 charging stations.
So there's always
It's getting to
available
be big
spots.
business. It's
And
not
it's
just
free.
not one or two. Yeah. I went to a charging station last night just to see what it was like. And there's 4 stations, and there were 2 cars parked 10 o'clock at night, charging up. So, so it's being used here in my world, my little neighborhood. These charging stations are being used, and a lot of people are going electric. And I see
Highly
this as preparation for me. This is preparation for the future, when supply chains will be upset, will be disturbed. Gasoline may not always be available. Electricity may not always be available. Mother Nature. We just had another earthquake. We're getting a lot of earthquakes. I've lived in the
but it's
Pacific
tobacco.
Rim of Fire. We had a
I've read
4.5
about that.
coast. Yeah, and 2 weeks ago we had a 3.8. So none of the big ones. I know what a
Scary.
7.2 looks like, and where I live in downtown
Wow.
Olympia, it's I'm not
That's
100%
huge.
comfortable here. It's like I feel like I need to move back into the woods, where I had been when I was in the Ramtha school, and I lived with other Ramtha students, and I was sharing property and renting a place.
Yeah,
And,
because you were looking to relocate, kind of after you were.
oh yeah,
kinda-
do I want to live in Hawaii? Do I want to go to the Kingdom of Tonga? I want to
and
swim
there
with
you
the
back.
dolphins.
You're back in the PNW.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So maybe that's
And
the right
I got
spot for you.
I got to tell you, every time I see the news, it's like, how can North Carolina last month be flooded out with the hurricane, and now they
Hmm.
got 175 forest fires going on? What the hell's going
It's
on in Carolina?
crazy. Yeah,
It's like,
that's just
my God, that
there's
doesn't make any
fires
sense.
everywhere now. East Coast, West Coast,
But
the LA fires.
yeah, but I reflect where I live in the Pacific Northwest. We're easy peasy. Mother
Yeah,
Nature's taking care of us.
I think you're in the right spot.
I agree. I agree. So my inclination to go, so let me go see if I want to live in Hawaii. It's like, nah.
You can always
No,
visit.
I'm gonna stay here. Maui burned down. 2 years ago.
Yeah, there was the huge
Right.
fires in Maui.
Yeah. Right. The shoreline in Honolulu. There's no beach left in Waikiki.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
all
very
gone.
expensive. Of course, Hawaii is expensive because everything has to be shipped in.
Oh yeah.
So Honolulu, all the islands, Maui, Kauai, very, very high dollar. I mean, higher dollar gas, and even the PMW, which is really not a whole lot higher than California. So it's really high cost of living. And God, the PMW, so it's so beautiful, just naturally. The trees and God, just the roads going up to the mountains are just so different than what I'm used to. Just being up there when I was in Seattle with you, and it was just
Please
beautiful. I
don't
mean,
please don't oversell it, Drew. We don't want any more people moving in here.
yeah, well, yeah, I get it.
Those Californians are
But it
driving
is
up the
pretty.
prices.
It is pretty.
Yeah, yeah.
It's an awesome place. So the book takes everything down. Your experience with Ramtha, and then you stay at Ramtha for a while, and you get a little disillusioned. I mean, it's not all Ramtha or Jay Z Knight. There's some fellow attendees at the school. I think you didn't completely agree with, because I know your story well because we're friends. But at some point, you leave the school and you leave the state.
I didn't leave because I was disillusioned. I left because I just ran out of money and I was exhausted. And I write about this extensively in the book. It was more of a psychological decision. And I had a conversation with a friend, and she's mentioned in the book. Her name is Renee. And we were both talking about getting ready for the retreat. We had a required retreat that was coming up. And by required, I mean, if you wanted to stay current in the school, you had to go to certain events that were required because they were the progressive teachings. And so you wanted to keep abreast of the current state of things that Ramtha was teaching. And Renee said, I don't know if I'm going to go. I don't have the money. I said, yeah, I don't have the money either. It's like, I'm so tired of chasing the money. Either hawking my car or borrowing money.
It ain't cheap. I just assume.
Right. No, it's not. Nothing is cheap. I signed up for a couple conferences, new agey things down in Sedona. Ugh. And then I got COVID and had to cancel. Getting COVID cost me $4,000 in canceled motel, airplane, conference fees, things like that. It's like, hey, I thought we were all involved in ascending and evolving our consciousness, and you guys are just money grubbers. It's like, come on, let's get real. And so I left the school because, as Renee said, I'm tired of chasing the bus to become a remarkable person. And that's another way of saying I'm tired of chasing the bus that's going to help me become God realized.
Yeah.
And people ask me, God realized, what does that mean? Do you believe in God? And I said, well, I believe that we're all God. And they said, what are you talking about? Do you believe in God? And then it comes to be a question, well, exactly what do you mean by God? And from my perspective, God is the shorthand term that we use to describe the source, the all, the is,
Yeah.
the
So you're not
everything that
saying that
is.
you are God, or you're just part of this, the consciousness, the overall consciousness off planet, one big consciousness that you cross into after you leave this plane,
Yeah, and then
maybe it be
we
alien or
all
not.
come from. Yeah, so I believe that who we are as human beings is kind of like in the military. It's a temporary duty station. That we were somewhere else,
Oh, I
and then
believe
we
that.
came here. We came here for this gig, and we're here for a while, and then the gig is over. We die or whatever. And then we go
Hmm.
somewhere else.
Right.
Um, and
Way
and
station.
yeah, right. We get a transfer. So we get new assignments. And the source has created it all, drives the whole bus, and is unconditionally loving. So it allows
Yes.
everyone. It allows
Yeah.
Hitler. It allows Donald Trump's. It allows Joe Biden's. It allows
Everybody.
Drew Beeston's. It allows Bruce Smith's. It allows Ted
Cr-
Braden's. It
the
allows
crazy lady.
the crazy lady. It allows Pat Hogan. Tom Kay, Eric Eulis. All of us are loved into beingness. Okay, and we are all having our individualized, unique experiences, which inform the source, which is why the source created us, because the source wanted to know more about life. It wanted to know more about what it had created, and so we inform so someone was writing about universal consciousness. Yeah, that's what. So we're part of that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think we're at a state right now. I think we're in a process of remembering our connection to source, and that's why. And Ramtha calls it realizing that you have your God is within. God is within you. That we're not just human beings. We're divine beings. He said, the way he puts it, the way I heard it was, you're a divine being who puts on the form of humanity in the way that you would put on a coat. One arm goes in one sleeve, one arm goes in the other, and now you're a human being. You take it off, and then you go back to that other state of being a spiritual being, soul.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
all of that, and in one of the aspects of being a human being is a profound degree of forgetfulness, that we kind of forget that we're something other than just a human being. This experience of being a human being is so intense, and it's so difficult, and it's so emotionalized, and it's so fraught with survival needs and
Oh my
stuff
gosh.
like
You're
that.
talking about
That's all we can think of. That we kind of
I
like,
talk about this all the time with a good friend of mine that's
yeah,
so
it's
smart,
like,
and how
yeah,
hard it is just to live,
yeah,
money or not, just the survival of
yeah.
it all.
And I think the extraterrestrials, my experience of the extraterrestrials, and I write about my experience with ETs, of being an abductee and being part of the hybridization program run by the Zeta Reticuli people, and which comes under the chapter of having sex with aliens, because they wanted my sperm, they wanted my
It's my
genetic material.
it's my explain that because it's one of my favorite parts of the woo woo.
Yeah. Okay. So this hybridization program, Homo sapiens. So humanity is the current biological characterization of humanity is that we were Homo sapiens, which means you're a little different than the Homo Neanderthal, and different than the hominids and things like that. And that time is quite flexible, it's fluid. And there are many timelines of reality. So this life that we're having, so this Zoom call and our conversation that we're having right now is just one timeline in our experience. And there are others, kind of like parallel lifetimes or parallel realities, maybe parallel timelines. So I'm not quite sure of all the dynamics, but I just know that there's other elements in all of this. And in one of these elements the timelines are a little bit more, that timeline is more advanced, maybe 1,000 years more advanced. And in that timeline, Homo sapiens became so technologically advanced and became so intellectually fixated, they lost their emotionality. Just like in the story with my therapist. That's true. Okay.
Mhm.
Those rumors that have floated around the UFO community for generations are true.
Oh yeah.
And so those beings, so those human beings who are way in the future got to the point where they could not reproduce because they didn't have the right, there was no emotional vitality in their bodies. So no soul wanted to incarnate in them. And
Oh, that's fascinating. Ties
and
into an NDE I was listening to on
yeah,
YouTube the other night.
so there was a big sit down in the Federation, in the Galactic Federation, you know, the Star Trek guys, you know, right?
The guys that sit around the round table.
So the humanity 2,000-3,000 years on that timeline went to the Galactic Federation. So we need help. And so they came up with a plan. And the plan was to go back in time through their technological capabilities and have sex with guys like me and others to replenish their gene pool. And
on the Earth.
On Earth, right here, in this timeline. So they kind of backtracked, and along the way, they were able to shift out of their timeline and sync up with this timeline, and knock on the door saying, "Hey, Bruce, you don't know us, but we know you, and we'd like to have sex with you because we need your genetic material." And we're doing this with a lot of people who are kind of like, kindred spirits are kind of in sync with us, who might be open to the possibilities. And you're kind of one of those guys. And so we'd like to talk. And I said, I'm busy. I'm in therapy 2 or 3 times a week. And, I think my therapist is an alien.
And these DB Cooper idiots won't stop emailing me.
And I'm trying to sell my business, and everybody thinks I'm crazy. And I'm going to the ramp to school. I said, come back in 6 months. I said, I sympathize. I sympathize with your problem. I just don't want to get involved with you guys.
Yeah, it's time consuming and it's draining.
Right. So that was day 1. Day 2, they come back. They say, we're back. And I said, like I told you yesterday, I said, no, I can't handle it. And they didn't let up, and they didn't take no for an answer. And several weeks later, I'm back in New York. This all initially occurred in Yelm during a retreat with the ramp to school. And in the early days, I would commute from New York out and spend a couple of weeks, and then I'd fly back to New York, be back with BJ in the house, and yada yada yada. And so I'm back in New York with BJ, and one night the Grays show up again. It's like, we're not taking no for an answer, Bruce.
Is this in a dream state where they come visit you, or is it?
Yeah, I was in some kind of lucid dream state. I felt fully awake. I was sexually aroused.
Did they enter your brain? Like they have technology to get into your head. Like my friend's really into this.
I was having a telepathic communication that seemed very clear to me. I understood.
Same thing happened to my friend.
I wasn't freaking out. I was just going, well, okay, you want to have sex? Okay. BJ's lying right next to me, and I go, what about her? And they said, well, she's not part of this. Don't worry about it. I said, okay. So we have sex. And the next day I go, oh my God, what have I done? And again, I had another session, right, with my therapist. I go to Sally. She goes,
did she really thought you're crazy now?
Oh, my last session, to jump ahead, my last session with Sally, I said, you don't think I'm going to, and I'm leaving for Yelm the next day. And
yeah, for a while.
And she said, I said, Sally, you don't think I'm going to make it, do you? She goes, what do you mean? I said, you think you're going to get a call like in a few days from some emergency room physician in a little hospital off the interstate in the middle of Nebraska saying, hello, this is Dr. So-and-so in Omaha, Nebraska. We got this patient. He just came in. He's kind of catatonic. He's talking about aliens. His name is Bruce Smith. I said, you were a therapist. We're calling to see if we can get some more information to clarify what the hell this guy's talking about. Yeah. And she goes, yeah, I'm expecting that phone call. Right. Mm-hmm. So the last And I said, yeah, that's kind of how I figured, that's how you think of me, and it wasn't recriminating. It was just like, we're clearing the decks, just
Yeah.
talking honestly to each other. And I said, well, I learned a lot from you. You got me through a lot of things, and I really appreciate it. And I'm glad I had the money. And I'm glad my dad helped me out, because I was 15 grand in the hole, and he wrote me a check for 15
Oh,
grand.
wow.
So yeah, a lot of people helped out. People stepped up, and I said, Sally, all the best to you. And I'm off to Yelm, and so I start walking out of her office, and I'm going through the office door, and she goes, Bruce, wait. She reaches out. She extends her hand. She said, I just want to wish you good luck. We shake hands.
Wow.
One and only time we ever touched.
That's amazing.
I'm walking out of her office.
That's a great ending.
That's that story. All right. And I forget that's in the middle of the alien story, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So back to the aliens. So I tell Sally, I had sex with aliens last night, and BJ was right next to me.
Are you mad?
Yeah, no, I felt totally debauched. Yeah. And she was this speaks to the depth of her training and how big her heart was. And I tell her the whole thing, and I thought, instead of jumping up and down and saying, oh my, and burning crosses and throwing holy water on me, she didn't do any of that. She says, Bruce, it's an interesting story. You had an interesting dream last night. And she said, from my perspective, as a Freudian, I think your inner being is speaking loud and clear to you that your relationships with women are so problematic for you, and you feel so unsatisfied that there's a part of you down deep that feels for you to be sexually satisfied and romantically satisfied, to find a peer, you're going to have to go to outer space to find a girlfriend. I said,
where's the rocket?
That makes sense, Sally. And that was my operating perspective for the next week. And I told BJ, and she goes, Bruce, I got to tell you, I never saw this. I never saw it coming. I never saw this coming. And I told her what Sally said was. She goes, well, maybe Sally's right. So that's how things were kind of left for quite a while. And in the same time, I'm packing up my truck, getting ready to go to Yale. So go to the Raptor School. So that's I talked extensively about my alien experiences when I first came out to Yelm in the early days, and a lot of other people in the Raptor School. A lot of people are having these kinds of experiences, being abducted.
Yeah, where you can open up and no one's no one's judging you.
Yeah, and my experience with the Ramtha students is that the process of becoming a Ramtha student was really a process of breaking through of a lot of psychological constraints and conditioning. Most of us, almost everybody, 99% of everybody in the Ramtha school had gotten divorced to go to the Ramtha school. They left, they sold their houses, their businesses, whatever they had, they sold it to get there. There was a real
cult-like, but you never, like we talked about it, like you'd never really call it a cult, but it had some cult-like properties.
No, it was a definitive breaking with our pasts and leaving people behind. And some of it was messy. Some of it was
some divorces or any children
who gets the kids, and a lot of people, a lot of women, and it was mostly women. The Ramtha school is 80% female. All right,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. There's very few guys in the woo-woo. It's mostly women. You go to a conference in Sedona. I'm looking around. I see one or two other guys, and I'm surrounded by 20 women.
Wow.
And, that's just the way it is. Is it a cult? It wasn't a cult for me. Is it a cult for some people? I think so. For me, a cult is when you give your own mindfulness away. You give your own power of discernment.
Like whatever you say. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Whatever you say, I'm going to do. You give your
money,
power away.
whatever.
Right. As opposed to feeling empowered, which I was, okay, to speak your mind, to speak your heart, to follow your dreams, to engage your passions, to create, to experience your truth. That's an empowering thing, and that's what the Ramtha School. I was able to experience that in the Ramtha School. Other people say, no, whatever Ramtha says, whatever he wants me to do. That's a cult. When you're giving,
Yeah, you
away,
submit everything.
And there's cults all over the place, and I think there's variations, there's gradients, there's a sliding scale. Is our religions a cult? Well, for some people, yes. Okay, is Donald Trump a cult? Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah. Okay, is Kamala Harris a cult? Yeah, in a couple of ways. How about AOC? Talk about impassioned. Oh, go away, AOC. People are really getting worked up about her and Bernie Sanders these days. But that is what it is. I've given all my guns away. I've given all my ammunition away.
Was that recently, or was that during your Ramptonness?
No.
I know you've changed a lot recently. Like when you kind of ceremonially stepped down as mayor of Cooperville, which will always be the mayor of Cooperville. You can't lose it. It's probably going to be on your headstone, but because you earned that.
I don't plan on dying.
Like I said, it was only a small part of your life. The D.B. Cooper thing. But did the Ramtha School change you as a writer? Because I've always been a fan of your writing, no matter if it was D.B. Cooper or Boy Scouts. It's just it sucks you in. Whether you're talking about trying to track down Tina Mucklow in Philadelphia or whatever, it sucks you in. It's the skill you've developed over the years as a writer. Did the Ramtha School, were you that good of a writer in high school, or were you just
no?
You evolved.
The Ramtha School amplified and elevated my basic skills. It gave me a little bit more courage. It gave me a little more confidence. It helped me navigate through some fears. It helped me become stronger in the face of adversity, in the face of resistance. 12 people in the Tina Mucklow family have slammed doors in my face. Right?
Yeah. You got to appreciate your tenacity.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
you're a dogged reporter. You were a dogged reporter. Dogged. I mean, so I'm going to get the answers.
It's not that I got this from the Ramtha School. It's that I developed it in the Ramtha School. I developed it through countless days and hours and nights of mindful practices, of different meditations. One of the beauties of Ramtha is the different kinds of techniques and disciplines that he's taught us to address all these issues, to help us become greater than what we have been, to get through all of the minefields of all of our fears and anxieties.
That's great for everybody. That's great for every human being on the planet.
Oh yeah. And I think everybody, to some degree, everybody is in that process. If you're in AA, you're working on some limitations. You're addressing some fears. You're addressing some of the dynamics.
Yeah, there's a reason you're drinking.
Right. Or NA or psychotherapy, or you go to an ascension retreat in Sedona and you want to talk
gambling addiction, sex addiction, any addiction.
Right. If you're addressing it, you're doing the work. You are advancing. You are becoming greater than what you have been. And that's, to me, that is the greatest thing that we can do in life.
That's for sure.
Yeah, is get cleaner. Own who we are.
The book is your journey, though. I mean, so the book is your journey starting out when you were young. The stories, the effect Ramtha had on you, your writing, your storytelling, and where you are now, and how it's interesting how you gave up so much of that recently. And I think that still kind of broaden your horizons is a human being, as a writer, is just somebody that's inhabiting the earth and creating, like you were saying earlier, your own world that you like and can operate in, where you can control, where you can't control all the politics and stuff you don't like, but being out there in the PNW where you are, you can kind of have your own, for lack of a better word, bubble where you can operate in and be your true self.
Yeah, talking about bubbles, I wasn't in a cult. For me, the Ramtha School wasn't a cult, but I was in a bubble. I was in the Ramtha bubble where all my friends were Ramtha students. Everybody that I related to and was a
But you
Ramtha
weren't
student.
living there, right? You weren't like staying much. That's a retreat. A retreat, you were going to spend the night, but not. You weren't like living on a compound for years.
No, so that's the difference between the Ramtha School and the other, like the Bagwam, whatever, down in Antelope, Oregon. You know, they are really culty. Everyone's wearing purple, or everyone's wearing orange or white or whatever. You know, no, we come in just dressed as regular people because you didn't live there and you weren't dependent on them for room and board and shelter. You know, that it was really run as a school. You pay your ticket to get in, and you get the entrance fee. You know, for it basically was $100 a day. So if you come for a week, 10 days, it's $1,000. If you go for a weekend, 3 nights a weekend, it's $300. You know,
and this is 20 years ago.
Yeah, and now it's doubled in price or whatever. Like that.
At least.
Yeah,
sure.
But when it's over, it's over, and you got to go somewhere. You've got to find a place to live. You got to get a job. You got to figure out your transportation. You got to buy a car.
To pay for it all.
Yeah, you're right. You have to take care. You have to take care of yourself, and if you're having trouble with that, use the disciplines. Use the teachings that Ramtha gave you of creation, of manifestation, of focusing on what's in the way, what are the impediments, and what do you want? How do you and let your inner God, your inner spirit, your inner knowings
guide you,
inspire you, inspiration. Intuition.
Is that when you became a writer?
I've always been a writer, but again, it accelerated. I began writing more. Like, I would when I left BJ, I got sick, and I did a lot of stories, at least a dozen stories that are in the book, got written in a couple-month period where I was living back home with my parents, and I would write a story every night. Okay, so these are all short. A lot of these are short stories.
Mostly from your childhood or anything?
Yeah, from childhood, from Boy Scout camp, my experiences in being in the family. One story that I wrote, and it's in the book. It's called "The Good Samaritan in Tucson," and I realized that me and my family have this crazy disorientation when we get to an airport. It's like, well, I'm arriving at the airport. Does that make me an arrival? Should I follow the signs for arrivals?
Or departure?
No. I'm arriving at the airport because I'm going to leave on a plane. So I'm really a departure. So I should follow the signs for departure. All right. So, and then rental cars. There's a line for rental cars. Well, no, I'm driving my own vehicle. I'm not, and this confused it. And it really came to a head in Tucson when I went to Tucson to help my parents who were thinking about relocating from New York down south.
Better climate.
Right. Enjoying the good life in a retirement city where, as far as the eye can see, are trailers filled with elderly people. They're friends, and we visited them, and I got to go back. I'm working at a hospital, and at that time, I got to fly home to go back to work. And we're in a rental car. My parents had rented a car. My father's driving, and are we an arrival, a departure,
or departure,
or a rental, right? And my father can't it's a 3-lane highway, and he can't make a decision. I'm telling him I'm in a departure. And my mother's saying, but we've just arrived. She's got a map of Arizona that's flying in the air. And my father, his mantra was, when you don't know what to do, don't do anything until you know what to do. That's how he lived his life. So my dad was straddling, he was weaving in an S across all 3 lanes.
Oh my God.
Of the access road from the interstate to the Tucson airport. And I felt for sure we were going to crunch somebody. We're going to have an accident.
We're going to hit some metal soon, crunching.
Yeah, and I tighten up and I look in the rearview mirror, fully expecting that there's going to be some car scraping us, And I see this other car behind us, a white Pontiac with its flashers on, following my dad. A cop, an off-duty cop who knew that we were losing our minds, and he blocked all the way back out to Interstate 15, whatever, he saved the day.
Yeah. Thank God for him.
My father finally decided, oh, okay, United, this is us. Woof, off we go.
Yeah. So
And then the
problem
guy
solved.
behind us turned off his flashers, and he resumed normal speed, and the rest of the traffic, boom, went into the airport.
That's a great story.
My parents never saw it, and I wrote that story. I remember coming down.
In this book.
I bring it's in the book. I bring the story down. My parents are eating breakfast or lunch or something like that. And I say, hey, and they were, so what's new, Bruce? You got a new story for us? I said, yeah, here's another one. It's about our trip to Tucson. And she bursts out laughing. The only time that I really saw my mother with a belly laugh, like tears are coming down her
God,
face.
I don't belly laugh when you.
My dad walks in, he goes, folks, what's so funny in here?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, oh, Alan, you gotta read this. It's Bruce's story.
Oh my God,
Tucson. Oh God,
he reads stories it. Are so good. It's just
my dad reads it.
They're so good you don't even remember them.
And he doesn't say a word. And my mother's going, Alan, so what do you think of this? Isn't that good? Oh God, I'm still laughing.
Yeah. My dad goes, oh God, you had me in tears. Well, it's not easy to make me laugh. I got to have something a little more cerebral to make me laugh. But your storytelling's so good, it just I can't help it. I'm crying. It's so funny.
My dad's last words were, "I always enjoy a good fiction."
Yeah.
Every word of it was true.
Or even a spin on reality is even good.
So that's my story.
So was writing the book cathartic, or was it, because I know your mom passed away 2 years ago or so?
Yeah. July 22.
Yeah. 22. So that was a big event in your life.
One of many. Yeah.
Yeah.
The bigger events in my life were the 30 trips back to New York to help take care of her and Dad.
Yes, you told me a lot, but we talked about that on the last show we did. You talked a lot about that.
I basically would fly in twice a year, Christmas and then my mother's birthday in June.
And you still have a sister, right?
Yeah.
Is she younger or older?
She's
younger,
3 or 4
right?
years younger than me. She's in the book.
Okay.
She's in the first story about when she was 6 and I was 10. So we were little kids, and she had open heart surgery.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and this is 1959, and back in those days it was pretty dicey.
Because
they had figured out
medical.
Yeah, they had figured out the heart-lung machine where they could oxygenate blood through this machine and do the repair. So they would stop the heart and stop the lungs. And
oh my God!
What they didn't perfect, and they found out afterwards, and my sister was part of the learning curve, was that the sutures that they used to close the tears in the heart, the openings in the heart that need to be, she had an opening in her atrium, her left atrium. So it had to be sewed together. And the sutures were the first generation of self-dissolving sutures. And they didn't dissolve so well. And my sister ended up with lots of infections and was in the hospital for 20 months.
Oh my gosh.
The first Christmas that came around, I had never seen her. For 20 months, I did not see my sister until she came home.
Because the infection level of contamination, or?
Back in those days, kids were not allowed to be in hospitals.
Because germs and...
Yeah, right. For some reason, kids are sicker than other people. So at any rate, I don't know if that's true or not, but those were the rules. I don't know if it's still true. I don't think it's true today. But at any rate, so my sister coming home for Christmas, she was given a 3-day pass and plenty of antibiotics. And my mother says, no rough stuff. When Barbsy comes home, there's no rough stuff. You understand that?
You'll never forget that.
Yeah. And, and I go, wow, Barbsy coming home for Christmas. The words just came out. The words just came out, and I said, that'll be like the greatest Christmas present I could ever get. And my mother turned in her seat and looked at me, and it was a look I'd never seen before or since. And she said, Barbsy coming home for Christmas is your greatest Christmas present? You must really love your sister. And I go, yeah, I guess. I guess. I was embarrassed. And the words just came out.
Yeah.
And the look my mother had was of great pride and great joy.
That's a great,
as a mother.
Great memory.
Seeing her son being able to love another. And it was like,
Yeah. It did all
and
right.
yeah, exactly. All right. So it was a gift to her. It was a gift to myself of self-realization, you know. And
Hmm.
that's the first story in the book of learning that I
Wow,
could
because that's a this big event. I could imagine your younger sister having such a big medical, procedure in the early days, and then 20 months of being gone. I mean, I can't even imagine what that was like. And I have
oh,
two older sisters. That
my
would be just
it was
incredible.
it was a rough go, and I give a lot of credit to my parents about how their fortitude. They went to visit her every day, and except Sundays. And my father's mother from Brooklyn would come out from Brooklyn and
Hmm.
would go visit my sister. So she had visitors every day, and my sister talks about the loneliness because she was in
Oh, I
isolation,
can imagine. You don't really have any,
so she couldn't talk to other
cell
kids.
phone, internet.
No, no, no. What she did have was a record player, and I keep talking to her these still about this. When she finally came home, I was astonished. Here's my 7 or 8 year old sister who knows the words to so many record albums. She could sing every Harry Belafonte song, and she could sing it in the right calypso Jamaican accent. Day-o, day-o,
Yeah.
daylight, home man, me wanna go home.
Go
And she's
home.
just singing all day long because that's all she could do in the hospital. Oh, yeah. So
God, so it was cathartic. It had to be.
yeah, and the fact that my parents could dedicate monies and time and energies to this, it was a long trek, you know. And then when she
Yeah.
came home, she still had to be infection still had to be managed. I remember my dad would be
From the
pulling.
suit, from the stitches.
He was little tweezers, he little pulled a
So they were
little
like on the outside of her skin,
filament.
and
Yeah, it was working its way out. Apparently, that's what
yeah, yeah, the body was pushing it out over time.
and it's coming out. It's like a cyst. It's like it's coming out
Yeah,
with fluids and pus, and it's like it's a mess. And
yeah.
then she bandaged up and things, and
So that probably left a mark on her, for a while.
it was a radical change. It was a Catholic hospital, St. Francis Hospital in
Oh
Roslyn, New
wow.
York, which became dedicated to cardiac conditions. Ironically, my father died 50 years later of a heart attack in the same hospital.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The,
Yeah.
the most transformative element for me, where it all came home, because it was all kind of like airy fairy. It's like, Barbsy has this hole in her heart. She's going to the hospital. And then I don't see her for 2 years. It's like, I'm going to play Little League Baseball, and, whatever, and Boy Scout meetings or Cub Scout meetings, things. And all these kids that went to, that had the cardiac surgery, and it was quite massive. When you see like Chicago Med, they're doing
Hmm.
open heart surgeries every
Yeah, I
20
watched
years.
that.
Yeah, and it's all being done microscopically or whatever like that.
Yeah,
Back
so it changed
back
so much.
back in the day, for my sister, the scars were enormous. Their
Oh,
entire
I bet. I bet.
was opened
It's
up,
almost like
and
taking a butcher knife to get to the
oh,
heart. And
exactly. And so my sister was invited a couple summers. All these kids have these huge scars all over the front of their bodies, and nobody wants to go to the beach in the summertime. So they organized a summer camp program for these kids so they could all be with themselves, and they're all mutilated in the same way, right? So no one's pointing fingers, okay? And they called it, the term that they used, it was the railroad tracks. That's the
yeah,
scar,
oh wow, the rubber track.
the railroad tracks. And one day was Visitors Day, and my parents and I, so my sister's up. This is in the Berkshire Mountains of Massachusetts, and I'm in New York. And my parents, we all go up to do a little camping in the Berkshire Mountains and to go see Barbsy on
That
Visitors
was
Day.
beautiful.
We show up, and I see 50 kids like my sister, boys and girls. The boys you could see with the railroad tracks
The railroad track.
and scars on their arms because of all they would put.
IV catheter. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the catheters, the blood transfer. So it would be into
Yeah.
the femoral arteries in both thighs, and then out of the arms. So the blood got taken out in the legs and then got returned in the arms, that kind of
Oh
thing.
my God.
And so there was
Just the
those
hardship
scars
in
all
the
over
body.
these bodies. And to this day, they still have these scars.
Oh, I
And
bet.
for me, seeing
This
that
is a
was
movie, Bruce. This book is a movie. It's just the
Joey
times you're living
McFarlane.
in, and
You're listening, Joe. You know Joey McFarlane is the A-list Hollywood producer that's
right
producing Mucklo's movie.
with a little Cooper connection.
Right. So not if you,
Joey, if you're around,
Joey, I got another book for you. Come on,
or Joey, if his
Right.
sister's watching too, because I know who she is. Same thing.
So seeing those kids at the summer camp and seeing those scares, that really brought back to me. That really brought home.
Wow, I could just see that playing out.
The size, the massive quality of this, how big it was.
God, just for 6 years old. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Of course, I met you through all things D.B. Cooper, but for me, it's like, who Cooper is, whatever. It's like Bruce Smith was meant to be in my orbit, because like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you and Poe Ballantine, two of my favorite modern writers. No matter what you're writing about, I'm into it because of the way it's presented and the way it brings it to life and the way it puts the reader right there. It's just such a skill.
Thank you. I appreciate those words, Drew, and I'm here to tell you, anybody that's listening, and certainly for you, anybody that's listening, and I put this out into the D.B. Cooper community, but I expand it. Anybody wants this book, send me your mailing address, and I will mail you a free copy. Just tell me whether you want soft cover or hard cover.
I already bought one. I'm glad I did because I'm going to review it and finish every word because, like I said, I'm such a big fan of the writing and
I'm doing this for multiple reasons. One is because of the inheritance that I got from my sister. Okay. So Barbsy survived. So the operation gave her a life. Otherwise, she'd be dead.
Right. Yeah. Thank God it all worked out and the infection went away.
Those kids, if they made it to high school, they were lucky.
Yeah.
She's 71 years old. She's got 3 kids. She's married, yada, yada, yada. And she's the trustee of the family estate.
Yeah.
And there's a whole nother issue of the transfer of and distribution of the assets in the family to the individual.
Yeah, the house. I think you talked a little about before.
Right. The house. My parents bought their house in New York that I grew up in for $40,000 in 1963. Mm-hmm. And my mom, when my mom died, we sold it for a little less than $1 million.
Wow.
And that's.
So what neighborhood was that in? Because I know you went to high school with Bill O'Reilly, and that's Levittown.
It's an upper middle class Catholic Republican neighborhood called Garden City.
Garden City, that's right.
Yeah, Garden City, where every house has 2 or 3 cars. Nobody has my family was the only house on the block that had 1 car.
Right? It's just the real estate values went so crazy.
Right. And every car has a sticker in the back window of what college the family.
Oh, wow. Dartmouth, NYU, Bard, just kind of throw it out.
Columbia, the Ivies,
Harvard,
Smith
Yale,
College,
Brown.
right. Yeah. And the little stuff, it's a Catholic neighborhood. So a lot of kids are going to Fordham, Holy Cross College,
Notre Dame.
Ironically, the guy who shoveled my mother's house when she was old, the next door neighbor, went to the college I went to. So it was weird going home to see mom and seeing a car with a Lehigh University sticker on. I go,
yeah,
Lehigh, bring back good memories. Oh man, Lehigh. That was a disaster.
Wow, that's great though, man, that you did it, and it's not for money. It's just it's Bruce Smith at his best.
Oh, my intention is to make money, but my marketing strategy that I've learned through the
that's smart because you're that good. You're that good. I mean, I'm a fan of yours because I know your work.
A great book, but it's a very unique book. It's a very individual kind of book. It's for people who are on a spiritual journey. It's like for people who want to become closer to their God. Okay.
Yeah. And your journey.
Exactly, who are on their own personal journey. And I think this book can help people when they lose faith, when they go, I don't know, this isn't working out. My marriage sucks. I can't stand my job. The kids are crazy. My kids are on drugs.
So hard.
Yeah. When you're really faced with it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're losing it, this book might put a smile on your face.
Wow. I can't wait to read it. I remember I got to meet you in person in November, and I walked up and you didn't immediately recognize me, which I don't blame you. You've only seen me on things like this. And you were like, who are you? And I said, Drew Beeson. And you were like, Drew. And you gave me this big bear hug. And it was like, man, I'm home. I felt, I'm home,
So anybody that wants the book, you can get it.
The link is in the comments.
At some point, I'm going to say
the link to buy the book on Amazon is there, or I'll get you in contact with Bruce if you need to. Either way, the link's in the comments if you want to buy it. Leave a comment, leave a review, which helps a lot. I know as a book writer, at least till you get it like to 15, 16, it helps a little bit. He's already got one perfect comment on it, and I'm going to drop another, of course. So those really help. I'm just, I'm asking for Bruce to leave a good comment for the book, which I know is great because this guy's the best storyteller that ever lived. So don't worry, it's a 5-star no matter what. I mean, he's that good at his craft, and his storytelling is, you can tell from watching this how good it is. D.B. Cooper or not, this guy's so much more than a guy that met the Foremans and kind of was an early reporter on the D.B. Cooper cases, which is how he was made famous. But he's so much more than D.B. Cooper. Is kind of what I wrote in my little blurb that I did for you. Like, you don't understand how much more Bruce Smith is than D.B. Cooper. He's a lot wider than the D.B. Cooper world.
There's a D.B. Cooper connection in the book. I asked a lot of people to send me a testimonial for a blurb for the book.
I read a couple of them.
Yeah. And the first person, and I sent out a PDF file of the book as it was 2 or 3 years ago. Nikki Broughton, who I think almost all of your listeners probably know, was the first to respond. He responded within 24 hours.
I read Nikki's forward.
It is elegant. It's
fantastic.
I go, my God. First of all, how did he read the book in 24 hours?
This is the story you told me, by the way, in the truck.
Yeah, and his testimonial is so elegant.
Like Shakespeare wrote it, Bruce.
Exactly. It's written better than I can write.
It's better than I can write. Far better. You're a far better writer than I'll ever be.
And no disrespect to Nikki, but I didn't know that he had it in him. All right.
Shakespeare, I don't think
whenever I talk to Nikki, I don't feel like I'm in the company of William Shakespeare. All right. And
this is why I love people. Right now, people, if you're watching this is like the guys on my show. I love these guys.
Nikki, if you disagree, Nikki, if you think you really are the reincarnation of Billy Shakespeare, let me know. All right, that'll be in my next book. I'll put it in my next book. Right, my retraction where. At any rate.
Oh my God, I love this story. It's one of my favorite of them.
I was listening. So I listened to. I spent a lot of time with beings who are being channeled. So I Zoom. I'm in contact with a lot of channels in the woo-woo world, and I'm on a Zoom call with a channel by the name of Gail Thomas, who's in the UK. She lives in London, and she's channeling a collective that I'd never heard of before. That's called the TARP Collective.
TARP, T-A-R-P, and you talk about TARP in the beginning of the book.
Yeah, and everyone goes, when they hear the word tarp, you mean like tarpaulin, like a cover? You guys,
like a tarp, like a house cover,
right? Your collective is covering what,
Yeah.
And I said, no, and it's not, doesn't stand for anything, It's just, for some reason, it's the TARP Collective, and the channel. In the course of the channeling, she's speaking as the TARP, so the TARP Collective is speaking through her, and they say, we are here. At this time, our mission is to assist humanity in their ascension process, becoming greater than what they are, to return to the source, for unity consciousness. And we're here to help, to assist in particular, those creative beings humans, and we will help them, support them, and protect them. And then during the Q&A, the question and answer, I raised my hand and says, excuse me,
Like
Mr.
digitally, you like raise hand.
I'm a writer. I said, I'm a writer. I've got this book, Becoming God Realized, Stories from My Journey. And they go, yes, we're aware of your book, and we're very happy that you're writing it, and we will assist you, and we can continue this. And they started clapping. And then they said, if you can get yourself into a more coherent state, we will continue the conversation.
Yeah.
What is a coherent state to me? Yeah, that's a little vague. Okay, so to me, what it meant was go into the deepest meditation you can. So that night, I'm in meditation, and I feel like I'm in connection somehow with the tarp. And I said, I got a question about Nikki. I said, I don't know if I can use his testimonial because I'm not sure he didn't watch it from somebody that he read it in a book, and he just put his name on it, and he called it Bruce, and and
it's great. I read it. I read it at the beginning of the show.
I don't know if I'm going to be legally liable for plagiarism because of this.
You might hurt my whole book. I read it already. Oh God, it's so good.
I heard telepathically in consciousness, in meditation, they said, we helped Nikki. We gave him those words. He is very open to the process of receiving this kind of assistance.
So Nikki had to be in that state to do.
That's right. I told Nikki this, and he goes, yeah, the words just kind of came to me. It was like, yeah, but that happens all the time. And that supports what the TARP people told me. They told me later that Nikki could be a good channel. He's so open.
Yeah.
And there's a part of him.
Are you stoned off? Are you stoned off his ass?
Hey, whatever
works.
Right,
whatever works.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. I'm no judgment here. All right. Okay. So I wrote that in the book. Okay. And the last page of the book is a salutation to the TARP Collective, where I describe this interaction.
Yeah, you started in the beginning.
When I heard what the TARP Collective was doing, we've been partners ever since.
Is it AI? What exactly? Explain it. Is it AI, or is there human beings that are controlling the AI? I'm terrible at the whole AI.
No,
whatever.
To me, AI is a creation by human beings. It's super duper computer.
Right.
Computers. It's a computer system. Channeling is the process basically of amplified telepathy, where you can communicate, you can raise your vibrations, and they can lower their vibrations. And so
like Jay-Z and Ramtha.
There's a synchronization of energies and vibrations and frequencies, and so your thoughts are kind of like going from one to the other. And it's communication. It's a conversation. It's a dialogue. It's an exchange. And the people who really work on it, and there are channels now who have been working on becoming better channels, who have been at this for 30 and 40 years, and they are sublime. And more people. This is the first indication that, for me, humanity is changing, that our consciousness is expanding greatly, because the number of channels are, as one person said, they're popping up like toadstools everywhere.
Yeah.
And
that's
and Nikki is on the verge of becoming a channel. He should talk to D.B. Cooper. I asked the medium. I asked the medium.
Well, he will. He will. If he can, he will. Of course.
Can you talk to D.B. Cooper? And she goes, I don't want to chase after. I talk to dead people, but I don't want to chase after D.B. Cooper. But I'll ask. And she goes back. She came back a week later, and she calls me up. She goes, Bruce, I got some bad news. I don't know if I talked to D.B. Cooper, but I talked to somebody. I was asking for D.B. Cooper, and in my world, the way I use my process of talking to dead people, and in that process, I got a communication back that, my understanding, it is from D.B. Cooper, and he said he died a long time ago. He doesn't want to talk to anybody right now because he doesn't want anybody looking around for his bones.
Wow.
He told me.
He didn't call himself Charlie by any means, did he?
So she didn't have much to give me, and what she gave me, I just gave.
That's interesting, though.
So D.B. Cooper apparently is dead, and he doesn't
want anyone to find his bones.
he and Tina's family, no mas. They don't want any contact. It's like
No contact. Neither does Flo, for that matter.
Yeah.
What a great story. That is the story you told me in the truck, but I recalled it a little bit differently. But at either rate, it had me in tears. It was so well told, and you did something in the middle of it out of nowhere that made it so much better. It was just like master storyteller, insert here kind of thing, and I just lost it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the nature of being a good storyteller.
It is
that I'm
yeah.
I'm not wedded to the outcome. I just
Yeah.
wing it. I just
Yeah. It's just a natural ability to do it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, Bruce. I'm glad you finally made it on. Go back and watch the beginning because I do some Bruce smithing. That's my new one. Bruce smithing. I'll copy that like I have own grace smithing term in the Zodiac world, but Bruce smithing. But it was a pleasure to meet you finally in person. It was full circle for me. Far more important than who Cooper was is to meet some of these people that are great like you. I'd already met Darren in person, which was nice. So, you two guys were at the top of my list, Darren Schaefer and you, to meet. So that was a big driving force. And all the guys were great. John, Chris, Ryan, of course, a good friend. It was literally a bucket list deal, and you sealed it off with the story and the ride we took together, and I'll never forget it. But I've definitely got the book, going to read the book. I encourage others to get it, either by Bruce or by buying it at Amazon and leave a good review for it. And it'll be the best story reading you've ever had.
Or come to the Cooper conference next November. And,
right. Like John was on earlier.
I'll have Cooper books, and I'll have.
You can buy an autograph book. You can get a picture with Bruce. Maybe the crazy lady will show up. Maybe Tina will show up. I'm sure John would love that. And Ryan and Chris would be great. Maybe she will. You know what?
Pat,
I got a feeling, Bruce, she might show up.
If you're still listening, Patsy, I'm counting on you, Patsy. You're the only one that can do this. Go down and talk to Tina.
I think Pat could do it. If anybody could do it,
Pat has a way of talking to everybody.
Pat has a way of getting through that others can't.
Yeah, and also the McCoy kids.
Yeah, Shantae, Rick.
They deserve, and the D.B. Cooper community deserves.
I agree. I've been a critic of McCoy,
and to be treated with respect.
They should be treated with respect, just like the Foremans and everybody else. The Foremans are great. The Foremans, by the way, meeting the Foremans, I've always heard they were such nice people. Yeah. But now that I've met them all, by God, they are the nicest people you ever meet. I mean, all the rumors were true. They are so all three of them are just the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life.
And speaking of the Foremans, Tammy Foreman, this is Ron and Pat's
daughter. The daughter.
Tammy has become a friend, and she did extensive editing with me.
Wow!
And very supportive.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
She loves the book. She really championed me on. She was one of those people when got me through a dark night of the soul. It's like, Jesus, this.
Tammy's great.
Yeah, and she is writing her own book. She's taking her.
Oh, really?
Ron and Pat, her mother wrote most of the Barb Dayton book. All right. She's the one that actually typed everything in, on the computer. It was Ron that was going out and talking to people, and he's
and then they
stories.
Put it in. And
shut up.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show that's how you came to the Cooper world was meeting the Foremans and writing about it in the airplane and the. And, so thank God for the Foremans. I said that at CooperCon. I said we owe the Foremans for Bruce Smith, and that alone is worth it. I did. I said that on stage. I remember. I said, thank God for you, because without you, we don't have Bruce Smith.
Yeah, the Foremans stand on their own 2 feet. They have their own stature. They've told.
I love those people.
It's an honest story, and it's told in an honest way, a straightforward way. To the extent that they're able to do it, they did a lot of work. And Tammy is updating it now. Tammy lived with Barb.
Right. So Tammy, has a lot. She has a lot to add.
Has her own Barb Dayton story, and apparently may have slept on top of the money.
Wow! And then I don't remember what. And
talk about a D.B. Cooper.
Didn't she bring Barb's ashes? Because I know Nicole talks about. I know there's a picture of Nicole holding Barb's ashes.
I've lost track of whose ashes are where. My understanding is that
I
my
have too,
understanding
Bruce.
is that Ron brings
I know,
Barb's
Nicole, you're probably
ashes
gone because we went so
pretty
late.
much everywhere he goes. And
Nicole, answer me later on the ashes.
Yeah, she Barb goes flying in the airplane with Ron, in the
Yeah.
whatever.
So maybe they kept some of the ashes.
I don't know. Yeah,
But they're great people. And I agree about Rick and Shantae. They've done some podcasts. I have my criticisms of McCoy. I guess he's the only other Green Beret suspect that's going to come up. But like I said earlier in the show, if you go back and listen, I'm fascinated with Richard McCoy. I know a lot about him. And Nicole and I talked a little bit about Richard Floyd McCoy. He's just a fascinating guy in so many respects. His life was fascinating to me. It was tragic as it could be, but it was fascinating. First tour in Vietnam, 1964. He goes back, sells vacuum cleaners, does his second tour as an incredible airplane pilot, gets a distinguished flying cross, wants to do a third tour, and his wife absolutely says no. And then the whole shootout, and then he gets a judge. It's like anti-Mormon. I'm just fascinated by his story. It deserves a new book that won't be pulled from the shelves, in my opinion.
And it's not just Richard McCoy; it's the whole McCoy family, because the mother, was an accomplice. She was the getaway. She was the getaway driver, so she's
exactly. She wrote the hijack instructions,
right? And then, according to the kids, she confirmed to the kids that your dad was D.B. Cooper. So she's part of this story, and they protected her privacy and identity,
which would make sense.
Being silent about it for 50 years, but now they're talking about it because mom died a couple years ago. Their mom died a couple years ago.
She did. Karen Burton.
Now we need to hear the whole story.
We need to hear from the kids, which unfortunately aren't Cooper experts, but a lot of people that come in later with family members, they don't, they haven't spent years on it like we have, or you or Ryan, or especially you've been around for so long. But I know that we've always played this association game, which makes me think of Lisa's Story, which I know Lisa's Story. That's Walt Recca's niece.
Oh yeah.
Lisa, and I only kind of know her casually online. But what's interesting is now we can make at least a first-person connection between Walt Recca and Ted Braden. They both knew a guy named George Sisler who was killed in Vietnam. Won the Medal of Honor in Vietnam. Walt Recca jumped with Sisler, and Sisler was one of the original, what we call the Contum 33, which Ted Braden was a member of. And from what I heard through the back channel, I don't know if this is true or not, or somebody just anonymously throwing shit at me, but they said that Osidich, who I know you've spoken with, claims that he can put Braden at the 10-Away Junction Cafe in Cle Elum, which is interesting. So I know Bruce Smith has always been kind of a guys on the ground. Okay, I don't think it's Braden, but maybe a guy like Braden, but definitely Special Forces. Maybe Braden's on the ground, maybe McCoy's on the ground or whatever. But I thought you'd like that at least that the closest that I know of that we can tie any two guys together is now Braden and Recca. Strange enough. I would think Braden and McCoy, but no, it's Braden and Recca maybe.
Yeah. I would like, in the next conference, I'd like us to have maybe not a whole panel discussion, but some kind of revisiting the contributions from people who are no longer with us. Joe Weber.
Joe Weber, absolutely. You had so many conversations with Joe.
Billy Waugh.
Billy Waugh, and I would do Billy all day. Thank God for you, because you got me in touch with Billy, and you did it at the right time, because you were like, oh, Billy Waugh, I still have his number. He's real open. And I was scared to death to call him. I think I sat on that number for 3 days after you gave it to me. And he answered the phone, and I was like, Billy Waugh,
These folks are major players. They may not be number one, but they're major players, and they cast a large shadow and had a lot of influence. And
they did on the early years.
They deserve
a voice.
I would like us to spend a little bit of time just mentioning.
That's a great idea, John. Yeah. If you're listening, or Ryan, or Chris, please keep that in mind. Yeah, John, Chris, and Ryan, keep that in mind. And Pat, I'm sure we'll Pat will let them know. But that's a great idea. To the people that have passed, Billy, anybody, Joe, of course, anybody that has passed that needs to keep their story alive, because at the beginning of the day, I'm a fan of D.B. Cooper. I'm a fan of D.B. Cooper anonymously. I'm a Braden guy, yes, but I'm a big fan of DB Cooper and the unknown. Just the legend of DB Cooper. Unmolested. I'm a fan of as well.
We also
and I was
need.
before.
We've got to find a way not only to get Tina, but Jeffrey Gray.
Yes, I think Ryan has had some interaction with Jeff Gray.
Yeah, and he kind of came back and he emailed me a couple times about the whole thing when Rick McCoy started talking and his name, Gryden was doing his thing.
Dan Gryder.
6 months ago, yeah, right. So Jeffrey kind of popped up again. I think he might have been trying to come up with another piece for New York Magazine. But he wrote the first definitive journalistic investigative reporter.
And I love that book. I like yours better. I think I said that earlier. I like yours the best because yours is called the Bible.
I agree. But both are substantive.
Your book and Jeff's book are required reading for any fan of the DB Cooper case. No matter who you like as a suspect, they're required reading.
Jeffrey partnered with Larry Carr. They were Batman and Robin in 2008 and really helped re-energize and revitalize the Cooper investigation and make it public.
Yes.
And Jeffrey and Larry opened up the files to Jeffrey, and Jeffrey was there by himself. Okay.
Wow, he did a lot of good.
He was the first guy, the first journalist to sit down, approved by the FBI, and read the files and to come up with a definitive understanding of who's who and what's what. And that's where we learned for the first time that Earl Cossie was lying. And Norman Hayden supplied parachutes. He
amazing
blew that wide open. And
why would Cossie lie? Why, Cossie lies. Cossie gets murdered later on, and a lot of people think, oh no, the murder there was other robberies in the neighborhood, and they wouldn't let you on property. They kept you away from the property, which was I'm a reporter.
I was under car arrest.
They shooed you away. Go away, Mr. Smith.
No, they didn't shoot me. They escorted me to my vehicle. And I was under vehicle arrest.
They physically handled you.
I was informed by the police that if I left my vehicle, I'd be in handcuffs. Right.
So, oh my God. So they heavily encourage you to leave the scene.
That's what happens when you begin to tangle with the cops. At any rate, the
funny stuff happens.
The Cossie kids, there's got to be some way to reach out to them so they can tell their story about.
That's a great idea. The Cossie kids. The Cossie kids at the next CooperCon.
They have no affinity to the DB Cooper community
so they have nothing to gain.
They tell their story. My outreach, how
the belongings of his wallet were mailed back, and that's so strange. I think the belongings of Cossie's wallet were mailed back to his son, I believe. And it had no note of where they found the contents of the wallet, which could have helped in the investigation. Like we found these, 30 miles, 20 miles, 5 miles, 2 miles from the house, and there was no note with the belongings.
Joe Weber and I had one of the most fascinating and productive conversations of our lives, talking about the return of the stuff from Cossie's wallet. And we both, Joe, for the first time, Joe listened to what I was saying and didn't talk over me or through me or, under me or whatever. Right. And we agreed that it had the hallmarks, mailing contents of a
personal
wallet. Yeah, it's personal. Mailing it back. It's the kind of thing a mother would do.
Yes.
As if she knew her sonny boy, he's in trouble with the cops and he's robbed somebody. We've got the watch, like she's washing his clothes.
Yeah.
And she sees this
she's
wallet.
Not going to turn him in, but she wants to feel better.
She's not going to turn him in. She's not going to say anything to him. But she goes through the wallet. She gets the credit cards of the driver's license and says, it's Mr. Earl
library card or whatever.
Right, the library card. You're right. And the address is on it. And she takes them, doesn't tell Sonny Boy, puts them in a little envelope, puts them anonymously, goes down to the mailbox, mails everything back to the cops.
So mind blowing.
It's and Joe said it's the kind of thing I would do.
A mother that sounds like a mother.
What a mother would do, who has her son is a known criminal.
Yeah, even if he's not has nothing to do with
Right,
Cooper.
and is on meth or crack, smoking crack,
Yeah,
or whatever. And she knows, and she's rolling with, she's going with the flow. She's rolling with the
I
punches,
wonder if
and
they tried to
she's
get
trying to be
any
careful.
kind of DNA or touch DNA off of the contents because whoever mailed them back had to have touched them.
That's right. That's right. And the envelope, and she let the stamp, or whatever.
Yeah, there you go too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how
Yeah,
deep
still,
how
just
deep the rabbit hole,
it
shall
never
we go?
ends.
And I say, I said, keep on going.
Uh,
That's one of the beauties of Eric Eulis. I mean, Eric, I hope we can find for forgiveness, and he can find some way out of the hole that he's dug himself into. Is it
yeah,
because
I think the door's open
I
there.
strongly respect and appreciate all the contributions he's made
Yeah,
to
the
the
door's open from what I
world.
know. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not
I
involved.
sure hope so.
I've been
No,
always on the satellite out here, but I know the inner guys,
yeah,
and from what I know, that door is wide open.
yeah. Now he's got a lot of apologizing to do. He was a very bad boy at the end, angry, accusative, nasty, owes people money, stealing from people, uh, trash talking them, mind fucking them. He did a lot of things that he
Yeah,
needs to own.
that's why I
That
always
he
kept
has.
always kept my distance from him.
But
I just did. And
but
it was for my betterment.
the prodigal son. Hopefully, we'll have the prodigal son come back
Yeah,
sometime.
but from what I know, the
Maybe
door's
not,
open
maybe
for
not
him.
this year. I don't even know if I'm ready to have a conversation with him because he was
Yeah.
so inflammatory with me. It was the most difficult phone conversation of my life, and I
Oh
thought
my
talking to
God.
Larry Carr was
Yes. Yes.
uh, um,
Which you and I are more like-minded with him.
yeah. So I don't know, Drew. You want to wrap this up?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up.
I
But
think you've gone over hours.
great
So
stuff.
yeah, thanks.
Great stuff as always, Bruce, man. I mean, meeting you in person was a highlight. It was a bucket list. Always a fan of your writing. Highly encourage people to get the book. And if I do go to the next CooperCon, it'll be because of you. And people like Mike Davis, Ryan, just a great guys, Chris, John,
Speaking of
and
Mike
Matt.
Davis,
Mike
wasn't Mike
Davis is a
supposed to
good
be
friend
in?
of mine.
Wasn't he
Love Mike
supposed to be
Davis.
in some TV show on Cooper? Some
He
episode?
did. It's already been on. Yeah, it was about how Cooper could get out of the woods. No suspects mentioned, but it was about how DB Cooper could get out of the woods, and they kind of recreate it in a thicker part of the PNW because so much has been developed around Battleground and Orchards, I guess. And they
Yeah.
went I think a little north of Battleground. I don't know where Mike would know, but Mike's a good friend of mine, of course, 82nd Airborne, badass. It was a good show. It really, the conclusion of the show was, I can't remember. God, what was it called? It was about Cooper, of course, but it was a series that this guy did, who's a real badass. I can't think he's ex-military, but the conclusion of the show is Cooper could have gotten out if he knew what he was doing by himself. They said it wouldn't have been easy, but it was doable.
Something else that I would hope, I don't know if we'll have this for the next conference, but I would, in the near future, I would hope that the Cooper conference would include a panel discussion of remote viewers who take on the Cooper case, because there's more and more remote viewers, and I've reached out to a number of them.
I know one well, and I want to get her in touch with you. Her name's Solaris Blue Raven.
They, for some reason, they're avoiding it. I don't know. It's not sexy enough.
It's weird.
Something. Yeah.
And I've been experiencing some weird stuff. I'm not gonna lie. And I remember when you were doing your early Cooper stuff, you were having files stolen out of your email and weird things happening.
Yeah.
I've been experiencing stuff like that the past 3 or 4 days. I don't know if you know, but I'm working with a new researcher who's hardcore, and he's uncovering new Braden stuff. And Darren would go on and say stuff like, "Well, Drew took Ted Brady as far as he possibly could." And, well, that's changed. He's digging up documents on Braden that'll blow your mind. He was living close to RMI metals before the hijacking, called Hunter Processed Titanium. You have uranium now on the tie, which comes from the Congo. I could make a really good case for Ted and the tie now that people would blow their mind. Thanks a lot. Shout out to Tim Wallace on that too. PPG. Things have changed in TED world. They're picking up big time. But the past 3 days, like, my words are getting eaten. Emails are missing. I mean, I'm not making this up. I'm like, the deeper you get into Braden, and maybe even if he's not Cooper, they don't want you talking about him.
Yeah. Yeah. See, yeah. it brings back those were unpleasant days. It's not fun to
I
know
think they're
that.
still out there. Is what I think. These people are still out there.
We got some bad actors.
Bad
People
actors, and they're hard to
who
explain.
Yeah, and I forget. I don't know what their names are, but I was able. Galen and I were both affected,
Yeah,
and we
Galen's a smart guy. Galen got me back
Galen
into the
says he's
case.
coming back. He has an open invitation to come visit, and we'll go out for beers
He
anytime.
got me back into the case, coming on to coast talking about Wolf. I liked Wolf, and I like how he presented Wolf. And then soon thereafter, you had the case breaking crew talking about Robert Rackstraw, and I remember watching that and thinking, I hope they solve this case. That's where I was at the time. And then I, of course, went to the drop zone, and you and Snowman were talking about Ted, and I became fascinated with Ted because you talking about Ted with Snow, and now I know who Snow is, and I know how smart Snow is. That's a smart cookie. Somebody at CooperCon who's very smart.
It'd be wonderful to get Snowman to the conference.
Oh my God, I'd love it if he spoke, because he comes at Braden. He comes at Braden at a totally different angle than I do. Completely different mindset coming into Braden that I have, which is fascinating. Of course, he likes Sheridan Peterson as well and wrote the book, and we talked about that personally, because I didn't talk to Snowman personally for years, even after writing about Braden. He was aware there was a book out there, but it took me a while. Somebody leaked his identity to me, and I reached out to him, and he wrote back days later, and I was glad that he did. But somebody very smart, and I won't say his name, at CooperCon pulled me aside and said, "Do you know how smart Snowman is?" And I'm like, "I know he's heavy in computers." And he said he wrote a lot of the early computer languages, bro. Like, he's smart, And I was like, "Gotcha," So I appreciated that little insight from someone at CooperCon.
Yeah, and
who I have a lot of respect for.
I would like to. Snowman has more to offer than just commentary on D.B. Cooper. His genius and his understanding of AI and the internet and all of that Silicon Valley stuff. And
yeah, he's an early pioneer of it.
Also, why he's quiet, why he is so hidden.
Quiet. He was quiet for so many years.
Yeah, and what's that? And I'd like to know more about him, because in some ways I see resonance with him. He wrote me once saying that he has the ultimate state-of-the-art fireplace, that burns.
Oh wow, I could see that.
The cleanest, kind of. Well, I want that kind of fireplace too, And
yeah.
And what more does he know? And where is he living? He's out in the world.
I don't know. I talked about him. We talked a little bit about Sheridan. Sheridan was part of a jump team in Saigon, and Sheridan was in Vietnam when Ted was over there. And I kind of said, "You think these guys bumped into each other over there?" And you think he kind of dismissed it, which surprised me, because Sheridan was in Vietnam at the same time as Ted. Of course, Ted was a fighter on that MACV-SOG, and Sheridan was more over there doing humanitarian work as relocating refugees. But Sheridan Peterson was on, I don't remember what they called it, but there was a sports skydiving team based out of Saigon. Yeah. And one thing that you notice, there's one photograph from the team, and it may be from 65 or 66. I don't know. And I never realized this, but Sheridan Peterson was a big man. I mean, Ted might be little, but Sheridan was big. He looked like a giant to me in this photo. I mean, maybe everybody else was Ted size, but Ted wasn't in it, which would blow my mind. But it shows Sheridan Peterson standing with this group of skydivers in the club, and he looks huge. Well, like a big guy.
Most of those members were all Vietnamese, and they're all 5'2", So,
well, that's true. But no, there was a lot of American Army guys on that team who were just your regular fighters. But I think there was mostly U.S. Army guys. But Sheridan was one of the few civilians on the team. And
I also know that Sheridan jumped with Vietnamese guys.
Yeah, he did. That's true. I think there are some Vietnamese in the picture, and there's a lot of Caucasian U.S. guys. I don't know if they're special forces or not, but they are U.S. Army. And he's a big guy. I never realized that until I saw that photo. Of course, they can be deceiving, but he's the biggest guy in the group easily. He would have dwarfed Ted. Ted's a smaller guy, no doubt, and Sheridan's a big guy. So it's funny that Snowman kind of likes those two guys, Cooper, in different ways. There's different reasons why he likes each.
Maybe we should add Sheridan to that list of in memoriam commentary.
Yeah, we should.
He's
fascinating. I'm fascinated by Sheridan Peterson.
A lot of attention there for a while. Yeah,
I'm fascinated by him.
He had a time there. Yeah.
he had a time and a reason, and I think he knew things, and the way he played the FBI was interesting. And of course, they tried to scare him into thinking that they definitely had Cooper's DNA, which they don't, in my opinion, they don't. But they tried to make Sheridan believe they had it, and they, Sheridan was reluctant to give a DNA sample, and then he eventually did because he's a big freedom rights guy. And he eventually gave him his DNA, and of course it was negative to what they have, but I don't think they have Cooper's DNA. I think they have Tom K's. Pretty sure of that.
Well, we know that.
But yeah, I think it's all things in the vortex. I think everything should be kept alive.
Yeah. All right, Drew. This has been
everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much for your generosity of letting me come in late and welcoming me.
Oh, no problem. Enjoyed having you on. It's always good, a lot of food for thought, and love having you on. You're one of my favorite people, favorite writers. Getting to meet you is an honor, and I'll never forget it. Hope to see you again.
Yeah, I'll see you in November.
All right. Thanks, Bruce.
Where's the conference going to be? Is it going to be?
It's going to be back at the Kiggins. John was on here earlier. It's going to be back at the Kiggins in Vancouver. Good. Which is cool because everybody can then go to Tina Bar on your own, or maybe somebody will arrange something. But
and will Rob Bertram be very involved?
I don't know. That's a good question. If John, if you watch this later, please let us know.
Because Rob runs the D.B. Cooper escape room.
Right. I think I met Rob.
Right.
Yeah, he runs the D.B. Cooper escape room.
Is excellent at merchandising and commercial.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Right, and has written a wonderful movie script for on the D.B. Cooper case.
Actually, Ryan Burns shared that with me. I hope I'm not letting anything out that I shouldn't, but I think Ryan shared that with me. It's excellent.
Yeah, and Rob won an award, and then nothing happened. He couldn't get any traction with Hollywood. He got very discouraged. And I go,
I don't know why, because I think honestly, I think the people involved in the vortex are more interesting than anything. The characters we have.
It's all part of the show. I mean, we're all fascinated.
Zodiac has nothing on Cooper as far as personalities, as far as suspects and researchers. Zodiac can't touch it.
Yeah,
no case could.
Thank God we have. Thank God we have. Yeah.
It starts with Bruce A. Smith, but definitely go check out the book. Becoming God Realized. It's on Amazon. The link's down there. You can find the link, but check it out.
Thank you. So until next
thanks
time.
Again, Bruce.
Okay. Thanks
a
lot.
Take care of yourself. All right.
You too.
Thank you. Thanks, Patty.
Yep. Goodbye, Patty.